Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and welcome to episode 17 of Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast.
It's me, Carrick, the green goblin of Xbox, with my green screen display around my head. I hate this. It's only with Maddie. It's so weird. Maddie and Dustin on the ham radio, man.
It's gotta be the program, man.
It's killing my soul. It's like I do my normal one, everything's fine. I go here and I look like I'm a 2-bit, Twitch streamer.
I feel like it's part of the charm.
It is.
Part of when I get in front of a green screen for one of my skits, I tend to, have that green hue permeating ever so slightly.
Just ever so slightly.
I think it gives it that B-tier comedy feel that we're really looking for here.
We like the common man. The common man. We're no Angry Joe, man. We're like slightly frustrated.
Yeah, I don't know how
Joseph.
he does that.
Dude, I've seen some people swing on a green screen to the point to where I'm like, is that a studio that you're in? Like a multi-million-dollar studio? So anyway, Carrick with ACG. Let's do this. Xbox podcast, the best Xbox podcast ever.
Yeah, I mean, we got 390 plus mobile ratings, which is pretty good. We are creeping up to 400. We're at 395 at last look. So if we could push over that, that'd be pretty dope. Because that's stellar. We have 17 episodes, man. Like, holy shit. And I wanted to thank a lot of our audience because Jez Corden of Windows Central Gaming is doing an article on Xbox podcasts and PC podcasts. And he said, like, what are some of your favorites? And a lot of people tagged us. A lot of other great shows as well. Like, Xbox 2, the Kind of Funny Xcast, so on and so forth. A lot of other great shows, but we were tagged a lot too, which was nice to see because we are new, right? So for us to be kind of thrown in that company already is really nice. So we appreciate those of you who have been really championing our show. It does help. It continues to help. We're seeing really high patron numbers as well. I was looking at Last Stand's Patreon, and it's awesome. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and support the show through early access, receiving early access, that'll be every Thursday if you're a Last Stand Media patron. Otherwise, you can be a freeloader. We'll tolerate you. We'll allow you.
For now.
That's every Sunday.
Until we get big, dude. Then when we get like super big, like when we're like the number one Xbox podcast, we'll be like, sorry, man. It's too difficult for us to give away.
Yeah, then we're going to wall you off. We're going to give you microtransactions for our show. You're going to have to pay per segment. And
you got to pay to remove the ads and pay to like remove other... We'll just talk about random stuff. You'll have to pay to remove that. It's going to be awesome.
For patrons as well, you can access Defining Duke Ultimate. We just recorded episode 13. That was with Hoglaw. He joined me to talk about the leaked Resident Evil Village contract that came out and seemingly walled off Xbox Game Pass. So we got someone who's more of a legal expert to take a look at the document, provide an opinion on it. So that's another episode I'm really proud of. We continue to push Defining Duke Ultimate forward to reward those of you who are investing in us. And for a treat for everyone who really liked our interview with Mike Rose, Defining Duke Ultimate episode 12 will be going live to everybody this week. In fact, I think once you're listening to this, according to Dustin, it should be live right now. So that's talking to a game developer, Mike Rose, about the impact Xbox Game Pass has had on his games. And there's a lot of information in there, a lot of, dare I say, inside info as well. He talks a bit about like a PlayStation Game Pass competitor and what he's heard. And also talks a little bit about financial dealings and everything. So there's a lot there. I kind of expect that interview to get scooped up if anyone gives a shit about Game Pass, but we'll see. But for those of you who are interested in the behind-the-scenes nature of Xbox Game Pass, this is a really good look into that. So do give that a look. It is free to everybody. Other than that, though, that's kind of what's going on my front. Carrick, what about you? What have you been up to, man?
Played some more Nier after the review, and then doing Returnal and some other NDA titles for review, and just crunching through those. It's been a busy weekend. It's been actually, it's been constant work weekend. I had planned on doing some like, 5 things you need to know or something cheeseball-y like that. But I didn't even have the chance to do Yeah, I was like, oh, this will get some views. Some people may like it. And I had a couple things to say. I wasn't just going to do 5 and be like, the game's got guns. But then once I started playing it, I was like, yeah, dude, I'm going to be stuck. Like, there's so many weird things going on here. And never got a chance to do it. So it's mostly been Nier and Returnal. Yeah, that's almost it, solidly. Watching shows on the side.
Lot of chatter on the timeline about Returnal. I think there's a lot of anticipation for it because PlayStation's starting to turn things around. We saw the PlayStation Store changes are no longer in effect outside of PSP.
Yeah.
We're seeing reports coming in about their investment in exclusive IP. They announced a new one. So on top of that, with Returnal and Ratchet looking incredible.
Yeah,
I'm really excited for PlayStation fans and just gaming in general. I mean, that's a good
Ratchet looks awesome.
Way to rebound after a pretty rough couple of weeks for them. So I just hope that, and we'll talk about this actually later in the show, I do hope that PlayStation and Xbox kind of respond to the concerns about like the CMOS battery in the case of PlayStation and the server issues when it comes to Xbox and being able to access your games offline if those servers were to go. Just stuff absolutely worth talking about. But PlayStation's doing great. I am really enjoying Nier. I have to say, in a lot of ways, and I didn't expect this because I played the first Nier when I was young too, man. So like, I was seeing some shit. I was seeing Kaine running around half naked. I was seeing some really grim shit. I know, right? It is a bit of an eye roller.
That's an eye roller of all.
Oh yeah, it's pretty egregious. I'm just sitting there thinking like, dude, all right, so a decade ago, like I was like 14,
right? That's
playing
what I was
this
thinking.
thing, like man.
Yeah.
God
her
bless
panties
Blockbuster,
don't
right?
even friggin' they sew up at the back. Like it's so just edgy.
You just see some nice ass crack.
Oh
like,
yeah, boy, Mass Effect needs
incredible.
to take some leniences with their ass crack cam because I'll tell you, Nier didn't give a shit. Nier's like all the crack. They took the crack and added crack. It's crazy.
Aside from that, though, I gotta say, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. First part of the game takes some time to mount up. The side quests are pretty ass compared to Automata because the writing in Automata is so exquisite that it really saves a lot of those side quests that could be boring. What's interesting, though, is the combat and bosses and the world building. It's a lot more coherent and fun than I had remembered, and I'm liking it as much as Automata, I would say, which is kind of surprising because it's more flawed, I'd say, than Automata, but it's doing something. I think because it's less floaty. Automata's beautiful, right? It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's beautiful. But the combat kind of wears you down between the 9S playthrough and as much as I love Platinum, one of my favorite developers in the industry, I feel like they're some of their games pre-Astral Chain, as far as I'm concerned, outside of like Bayonetta, I feel that sometimes it's too much of just being perfect dodging, mashing your weak attack and heavy attacks, and then just kind of doing that over and over. Where I feel Astral Chain had that perfect blend of speed and thoughtfulness. And what I'm learning here with Nier Replicant is it's a lot more responsive and punchy because of some of the overhauls that they did. And they got help from Platinum on that, but they did a really good job with the game. And I'm really liking it more than I expected. So that's on Xbox as well. It's not just PlayStation. It's on Xbox, but I had it on PlayStation because I'm thinking about going for that Platinum. But yeah, I'm digging the hell out of it, man. I'm excited to talk about it more on Ham. All right. Let's get into our warm-up questions. As per usual, we sift through 5 random-ass questions from the audience to warm us up to get into the news. So, number 1 is a continuation from last week with Tyler Bello. So, Carrick, this is the JRPG fan. And he threw into the Last Stand Media Discord. He's like, wow, I really felt the heat on that one. So, we asked him, what kind of JRPG fan are you if he never played the likes of Trails of Cold Steel, Persona?
Yeah.
So here's his answer. Unequivocal JRPG fan here. Just figured I should clarify some things from last week. Not that it'll make things much better for me. So first of all, Tyler, I'm just going to stop there and say I admire your bravery because I actually did not. I saw your first sentence, right? And I was like, that's enough for me. I know it's you. I want to get Carrick and I's raw reaction to whatever the hell you're about to say. So, I love JRPGs. I just haven't played that many. I've played a few Final Fantasy games, Kingdom Hearts, and a few Tales games, but the sheer amount of time that it takes me to complete games is what holds me back from playing more. Yeah. I'm a big achievement hunter, so I honestly put Colin to shame. I literally don't count a game as completed until I have all the achievements, and sometimes refuse to move on from a game until it's completed. Carrick, this is going to hurt you, man. This is hurting you. So, on my journey to complete the game backlog, I will play Gears of War 4 for about 650 hours, then put another 500 in when I get to Final Fantasy 13 because I missed one of the achievements, so I had to do a full second achievement run playthrough. And then I go ahead and take a 1.5 year break and go play World of Warcraft. What the fuck? This destructive cycle has led me to be a JRPG fan that has only played a few JRPGs and survival horror games, wait, hold on, he said survival horror twice. Avid reader who has only read a few books, but somehow managed to play every single open world third-person action game, even though I find them meh. Hope this sheds some light on my letter last week. P.S. I actually enjoy playing games to completion. Don't feel bad for me. You know, this is what we call
that's completion
a
is
psychological deflection.
Yeah, because completion, not the same thing as achievements. Absolutely not the same thing as achievements. I would argue that for the end to the ends has nothing to do with it. Those achievements are added in completely separately, has nothing to do with completing the game. On the other hand, I love how he's like, and I've played all the third-person open world games, but I think they're meh. No, I think his idea of what is fucking skewed. I think he internally, he's like that guy who's got the kink and doesn't want to admit it. Like, he's like, I only ask my wife for this special thing once in a while. I don't really like it that much. And it's like, dude, you're sitting there at night just waiting for the week to go by so you can ask her for that special something on Sunday. Like, there's something incredibly deflecty about the entire discussion. I love it.
Yeah, no, like I said, right away, this is a psychological deflection. You saying you enjoy them, you don't. I know you don't. No one in their right mind wants to put 650 hours in Gears. And hey, as someone who is a defender of Final Fantasy 13, putting 500 hours in the original one, stop.
Yeah, that's not even the game.
That's not okay.
I don't even know what that is at that point. That's not even the game at that point. That's like that's just a really weird thing. Like, it's just not really connected to the game. By the way, when I say weird, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but it's still weird. I mean, I don't, even he will probably think it's weird. I mean, he probably will admit it is weird. Like, that has to be on the edges of normalcy at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler seemed to be self-aware, right? He said, I should clarify a few things, not that it'll make things much better for me. So
yeah,
he seems aware of the... He looked at a pile of dog shit on the floor and actually stepped in it. It wasn't an accident this time. Yeah. He's like, I'm going to plant my foot in there and wash my shoe
He knows where the stink is coming from.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as you're self-aware, that's great.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you any less psychotic, but that's for you to figure out, right, Tyler?
What are some of the RPGs then? We already gave him most, right? Most of the ones. I mean, that's another thing. If he's barely played any, why give him a shit ton? I mean, in fact, you and I could agree on one or two and just say one or two.
If he's a completionist, like
Lost Odyssey has no achievements. So you could do Lost Odyssey.
Lost Odyssey has achievements. Lost Odyssey has it's achievement. It's not one of that's the thing. He would go insane with Lost Odyssey because that's a game that when you I beat it. I put like 55 hours into it and I had 13 achievements out of 50. And I was like, wow, you really got to go out of your way for this. Right. And I appreciate that because I think it means there was thought put into the list for those who do care about achievements.
Yeah, that one.
But for someone like Tyler, you just cannot passively own them. So you gotta go out of your way for them. And maybe that lights his fire, right? That's his kink. He's like, oh my God, it's a fucking struggle, baby. Let's go. And
what if
at that point,
one of the achievements in a game, the first one is to turn the achievements off in the game and guess what ones they are and play until you think you fulfilled it and turned it on. The dude would never get off the hamster wheel. He'd die.
I actually had I popped a trophy. I was recording for a video and I fired up Sly Cooper on my Vita and I was offline. I wasn't connected. So it was just registering trophies for the system itself. And maybe I actually didn't play Sly 1 on my Vita. So either way, it doesn't matter. I didn't have trophies for it. And I thought of you because I popped a trophy for starting the game. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, man. Dude.
Yeah, I was mind boggled. I was like, holy shit, they just give you that.
Barbie was one of those games that people were buying just to get the 1,000 achievement points because it was like turning it on was 500
Avatar
or something.
Burning Earth.
Yeah, it was like turning it on, going into the options. There's like 20, 40, 1,000, and pretty soon you're done. And it was just like, wow. And they sold, by the way, they were selling that game, was doing well because of that.
Because like some people care enough to go get it for that. And I bought Avatar for the 3,000 gamer score. You get I think it's a 100-hit combo. You can literally get it within 2 minutes. I remember watching Achievement Hunter. They did videos on it, and it was incredible. It was like, what? I love Avatar, and I can just get a free 1,000 gamer score right here. So your boy did that. Yeah, guilty as charged. But this was when I was younger. Okay.
So Lost Odyssey. What's one we can agree on that he should play then? Just one. I mean, like what's?
I'm thinking Lost Odyssey or Persona. He likes
sounds
Final
like it might be
Fantasy,
better.
so. He likes Final Fantasy, he said. So, I mean, Lost Odyssey is from the creators of Final Fantasy.
True that, yeah.
And that'll match up pretty well, so it'll be familiar. But if you want something different, and I as much as I adore Lost Odyssey, Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden hold a more special place in my heart, and I would really recommend them. Especially if you want an achievement hunt, you can get achievements and trophies for both those games. So, have fun, Tyler. Have fun, you maniac. I'm kidding. All right, next up is John Garlett. Hey guys, it's finally happening. Tales of Arise has a release date. This was announced at the Xbox E3 2019 conference a few years ago, and I can't wait. Tales of is my favorite series, and it all started with Vesperia on the Xbox 360. I love the party dynamic of these games and how the skits help you see the cast get together compared to other RPGs, where you mostly see how the cast develops their relationship with the main character, but not each other. Do you all have any excitement for this game and any hope of other Tales games coming over to the Xbox ecosystem? P.S. As a correction in AC Liberation, you do not play as a slave, but a black woman adopted by a noble. You go undercover as a slave in some sections.
Yeah.
Yes. Which
somebody
might
else
be what
corrected me
ACG
that
was
on
remembering.
that. Yeah. It's awesome regardless. But yes, thank you very much for that.
Yeah. So Tales of, it got a release date. I thought this was really unexpected because that game really went quiet, and when they delayed it, they didn't even put a date on it because they were really taking their time with it. Now we're seeing a full gameplay video. There's a trailer out. I don't know if you've had the chance to check it out, but it looks like a Tales game with a budget, and I was pretty surprised to see that.
Man, my experience with Tales has been nothing but failure, time and time again.
I'm with you. I've only liked two Tales games.
Yeah, people have told me I've picked the boring ones each time. Like, as in, I just happened to jump into. I don't even remember the name. I thought it was Mysteria or Tales of. Was it Mysteria?
There's Zestiria, Berseria.
Yeah,
those were
that's
like
another
two
problem.
that were connected.
I should probably already know this
I know,
issue
they all
if
have
they can't.
Ursia.
Yeah. But there, I remember playing it, and I was telling the guys this was prior to the Discord. So I think I was talking to the guys in a Twitter discussion, and I was telling them, they were like, dude, you've now picked the two most boring ones. And so what's happened with Tales is my brain just doesn't let me really get too excited about those particular titles. I have a difficult time looking at them and saying I want to play them.
Yeah, I see. It's funny because for those who are curious in the audience, I personally liked Tales of Exilia 1. I thought that game was great.
I never played that.
I liked.
For sure.
It's on the PS3 only, I actually think, and I thought it was really good. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit because I remember it was. You and I have talked about this a lot. It had one of those moments in the game where you think it's over and it actually kind of begins again, but it doesn't do it in a JRPG way where you're like, oh god, there's 20 more hours. It's like, oh wow, things have really opened up now. So that was one I really liked, and Tales of Berseria I really liked as well because of its story. What's interesting is with Tales of Arise is it looks like a Tales game with a budget, but I still find it really fascinating that you sort of fade in and out to combat, right? It's not like it happens in the open world areas, kind of like a Infinite Undiscovery where you can just run around, or an East game, you can just run around and do the action combat. In this case, you're still fading into a combat arena. And that's all right, but it's really interesting for the game looking as current as it does that it has such an old style mechanic.
Yeah, that is an old style mechanic for sure.
And so if that lets them do more with the combat system, then I'm all for it. But I just found that interesting. I have some excitement for this game, though, for sure, just because I am a JRPG fan. I think it's landing at an interesting time as well for them to release a pretty big JRPG in the fall. I might just not be thinking right here, but that doesn't seem like a terribly common move. So I'm excited for a little bit of that. Last one I can think of is Code Vein. I think that launched in September as well. At least it's the last one that crosses my mind, because like most JRPGs, we just saw it with the last 2 years, right? We have Nier this year. We had Persona 5 Royal last year. They kind of happen in the spring. That happens to be the JRPG season because I think they do well. They just maybe aren't strong enough yet to be a fall release. Unlike Final Fantasy 15 might be another one. But I'm looking forward to it. And I do have one small gripe. Tell me if I'm crazy for this, by the way. So obviously, Robbie Damon, Erica Lindbeck, very talented actors, actresses. Do you ever get fatigued from the same voices, though, in the same series? I should specify, because they're both, like, Robbie Damon plays a main character in Zestiria, like the protagonist. And then Erica Lindbeck is a main party member in Berseria. And I'm like, shouldn't almost that be it for that voice? I feel like recurrent voices for main cast, by the way, not side stuff. Like you have, I forgot her name right now, but there's a main party member in Persona 3 who shares the same voice actress as Kawakami in Persona 5. And it's like, okay, that's a little more acceptable because it's more of a side role. What do you think about that? Because I heard it, I'm like, why aren't we giving other voices a chance? Because these people are insanely talented. They'll find their work. But I just can't help but almost get frustrated because I'm like, oh my God, they're getting another set of these two voices in the main character role. So am I crazy for this?
No, I mean, I've had Anthony Gruber, who did a bunch of voices for Batman and a couple other things come on, and I've had some other voice actors come on. And, you know, from what I've heard from various people, tidbits, is that it's a really, really an old boys club, and girls, but it's a clique. And the clique is quite heavily influencing choices and companies' decisions, especially because you do have some relationships between some married, by the way, and I'm not saying one got the job because of the other, but you have married couples in voice acting, and you do look at it and go, well, you know, should we go with a group? You know, how do we do this? But like, I'm somebody who sees and hears those kind of things and expects them to be better because they do multiple ones, and they are almost notoriously worse. So like Nolan North, I'm pretty okay with. I think Nolan North overall is fine. I think Troy Baker's fine. But Troy Baker in particular, I don't think audio directors demand they do anything. Because Troy Baker in Spider-Man Miles Morales was terrible. I mean, he was terrible. He was legit C actor level. Like that could have been done by somebody on a street corner for $20 and they would have done a better job. He was not at all acting. And those kind of things happen. And when you get that repetitiveness, you expect more. I expect more from Troy, not less. So what's happening right now is people are buying into this voice acting clique and group, and then they're not requiring from them. And maybe it's because they're nervous, because it would be weird. Imagine getting Jack Nicholson and you're a director. Some directors have stated very clearly their worst work was with their best actors because it's hard to command presence in front of Jack Nicholson. Like, how do you say, hey, Jack, you can't be yourself? Now you have to sound like an 80-year-old woman. And Jack's like, what? You know, he probably would. But it's hard to ask that. And dude, it happens. I had one voice director come on, and he was like, he worked with somebody very high, and he was like, it was quite difficult because their terminology might not be exactly the same as yours, and your idea of working hard may not be the same as theirs. If anybody wants to know the behind the scenes, go watch The Last of Us, the first one, the making of The Last of Us, the first one. And Troy was like, Troy talks about it one time. He's like, I gave my all. And Druckmann, I guess, walked out and was like, what are you doing? Dude, that's nowhere near what we need. You like 20 levels above where you are right now. And even Troy was like, I thought I gave my all. So to a voice director who's not accustomed to working with Troy, they may not ask as much. And I think that can happen. Laura Bailey is very good in many things, but occasionally it's like she just shows up. And I don't really blame them because we know they're good. So you sort of have to look at the audio director and go, like, why did they not require more and different? Because, dude, there's some character actors who play and you can't tell they're the same person. Like, they could be in Persona and be in whatever. Like Anthony Gruber, I can guarantee you, I could have him come on and have him do 10 voices and you would not know it was the same person each time. That's how good he is. That's how good a Robin Williams was. Those are the type of people I want in voice acting. Like, that's why Anthony Ingruber being in Lego as Batman and stuff, I kept pushing him for him in everything. I'm like, he needs to be in everything. Like, we need that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, it's perfectly put. I can't really add more to it. It's just something I've thought about a lot where one thing, and I'm not, by the way, I need to make this crystal clear. I am not saying I am by any means a elite tier voice actor, but when I showed my clip from my point in Oddworld, one thing a lot of people complimented, and I think it's a pretty good compliment to get for anyone who does voice work, is I didn't know that was you. Part of the idea is to remove yourself, I think, from that role and create the character, right? Like you want to bring the character to life. I didn't like how when I heard the trailer and I heard Robbie and I heard Erica, I was like, there they are. Like I knew it. Like I immediately knew that's Erica, that's Robbie. And by the way, Robbie, one of my favorite voice actors.
Yeah, they're good
for sure.
It's not about that.
It's not their talent. Yeah, I want to make it clear in case God forbid they like. Not even God forbid, but like in case they come across anything, it's like it's nothing about their talent level. It's really just it has to do all with like I want to hear new voices. That excites me, especially in a Tales game where you have such a diverse cast. Like, you got to let people crack in, and so maybe it's a product of the pandemic too. They got the booth set up. You can just kind of rely on that, but
it is.
Otherwise, game wise. Looking forward to it.
I was just going to say I had the Hitman voice director or voice actor on, and he was like, some things I can and can't adjust. Sometimes the audio director doesn't. With Hitman, you don't want him suddenly sounding like a 19-year-old Japanese schoolgirl, so he can't adjust his voice in that. But if you wanted to put him in something else, maybe he would. I just think, it's mostly the directors maybe not really thinking. Maybe they're not playing the other games too. And that, by the way, that is possible. You will get somebody who, like, as their new RPG, well, they didn't get a chance to play Persona. They don't know that person's voice is in there. So to them, they're hearing it, and they're not trying to create a different character. They're trying to create a good emotive character for their game, which is a different issue than being bad. That's just being familiar, and that can cause it. It can cause problems. It can cause crosstalk if you play a lot of games.
Yeah. All right. Number 3 comes from John Carey. Hey, Duke Dudes. Can I ask a simple question? Why should I be excited about Starfield? Fallout 4 was a dated feeling game when it came out 6 years ago, which that makes me feel old. Fallout 76 was an abject disaster and took years of tuning to get over the decent bar. Given that Starfield is built on the same engine by the same team, why should we expect anything more than the last 2 Fallouts? And if that's what everyone is expecting, then why the hype? Is it just desperation for Xbox to have more exclusives mixed with a nostalgia bug? Not trying to hate, Fallout 3 and Skyrim were defining games back in my 360 days, but I just don't see the reason to be hyped for Starfield given Bethesda's performance last gen. If anything, people should be treating Starfield with the same skepticism as Dragon Age 4. I like this submission quite a bit because we do get this a lot about when we talk about Starfield. It does come from an intrigue standpoint. It's their first new IP in 2 decades, and so that's how we view it. But I can understand why that gets mixed as excitement because we do talk about it a decent amount because it's kind of the potential next upcoming exclusive from Xbox outside of Halo.
Yeah, I don't agree.
We're aware of.
Dude, you talked about it prior to it being Xbox. I don't think he's mistaken. He's stating it has to do with Xbox and exclusivity. It has nothing to do with that. Starfield was exciting prior to Xbox, even talking.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no connection whatsoever between those two. So any excitement you may have had, Maddie, I don't in any way, shape, or form overlap with Xbox. I overlap Starfield with everything because that's what you like. You want a Starfield game. Also, his idea that everyone didn't like Fallout 4 or 3, which was weird that he also stated the last 2 games. Maybe he meant Skyrim. Are completely wrong. People loved them. If he meant Fallout 76...
he said Fallout 4 and 76.
Fallout 4 sold gangbusters. There's people out there who obviously liked it. I mean, in fact, I think it's their number 1 selling game, is it not? Didn't you guys tell me that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think he's coming from his own focus and not realizing that all the YouTubers and people like that, the reason why they're excited is because there's a high chance they didn't agree with you. And by the way, I'm in his side where, you know me, I'm not huge on Bethesda, but I like some of their games. Some of them I have not liked. In fact, I'm the opposite on Vegas versus you, I think. I think you like Vegas more and I like 3 more. So like,
No,
there's
I like 3 more.
Oh, I apologize.
We're on the same
Okay,
page.
well, we're on the same page on that one. But we both, I would think we would agree, most people talk Vegas up more than 3, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Especially in story, right? And you're just like, yes, I get it. Okay, so So I'm not disagreeing with what he's saying. I think he's just seeing it from a pretty pedantic like filter and a filter that is only popped up when Xbox and Bethesda were talking about the exclusive, which has only been in the last year. So it's been big for a long time. I do agree with him though. Why shouldn't we? We're excited because it's a big open world game that has a possibility of being awesome, just in the same way that I'm not excited about Cyberpunk prior to its release, even though Witcher 3 was good. I am just excited about games being made. That's far more important to me, is that Cyberpunk was being made. I was excited about that, but I didn't expect them to do amazing because Witcher 3 did amazing. They can still suck. And that's what happened. And we could have a success. Right. Starfield could be... What if Starfield is the internal energy that Bethesda team needed? That's one thing to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say, tapping into what you set us up with there is exactly where I wanted to head with it. I think it's less about the excitement of what the game is, and really that Bethesda Game Studios was getting into a rhythm. Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. For them to, for the first time, think about it this way, right? Like, they've really been cranking out Elder Scrolls games for over two decades. For them to say, after 20 years, and by the way, 20 years of being fucking successful since Morrowind. Like, they have sold really well. They finally do something new. That's kind of the cool part, is there has probably been on a weekly basis, I would guarantee, I don't know this, but I would guarantee on a weekly basis, they're like, dude, this is fucking awesome. We're doing this.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Internally, you mean? Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely, they are.
And that to me excites me, because as much as I do like Fallout 4, I don't love it. It holds a place in my heart. It was kind of the game that lifted up my channel. Yeah, like as a Fallout fan, I think it fell short in a couple of ways, but as a fan of gaming, Fallout did a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I adore Fallout 4 for that. But I understand where the criticism come from for that game. But, you know, you could tell in its design in a couple of ways, it was complacent, and 76 was really a lack of care as far as I'm concerned. I don't want to call them lazy, because they did fix the game. But, you know, it was they didn't have the time to make the game, and the fact that Bethesda's higher-ups thought it was okay to release it is not okay. So I think there is a excitement to also get away from that noise. You don't have I remember Fallout 4, man, when they did Nuka World, last DLC for Fallout 4, there was a T-51 power armor, I want to say it was, inside Nuka World. That was of a model that was not yet created, or was created at a certain point in the Fallout universe that shouldn't have existed at that point. It was something along those lines with the timeline, and fans were like bugging out.
Exactly.
And I'm like, man, they're probably fucking excited that nothing prior to this exists where they can just make their game world and not have to worry about you asking questions about the lore that someone wrote in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, that as well is exciting for them. So the idea comes really from, as Carrick said, them being able to make their thing is exciting for us, because a lot of these things that have bogged them down are immediate. Like, it's not even about the development. It could still be buggy and all that shit. But a lot of things that were problems for them off the rip are gone. And I think that's pretty significant.
Our familiarity is gone. To me, the most exciting thing is I won't know how something works in this game. I don't care if they've even, and by the way, he's wrong about it being the exact same engine. It's not. But when you're looking at this game, there will be systems in it that you will have no historical connection with whatsoever. As a YouTuber, as a gamer, as anybody, meaning I could be surprised, which is imminently less rare than it used to be. And I get, since Daggerfall, because I've been a long-term fan, you already knew the different worlds and lands, and you see a guy and you're like, I bet you that's so-and-so. Guess what? That's why I liked about Outer Worlds. Because Outer Worlds, I was like, I don't know what that is. I have absolutely no historical connection with what this creature could or could not be, or what even this name of this company is. That's why it's exciting. And that's why people are hoping it's good, which I could see somebody thinking they're assuming it will be good. But I think we all want a big game, any game, by the way, worked on by multiple people to be good when it's out. I don't think that that's too much to ask.
Yeah, Absolutely.
But it's a good question, good thought process.
Hopefully, yeah, absolutely. A lot of these questions this episode are great, so I'm really excited to keep going through them. But thank you for your write-in, John. Hopefully we answered you there.
And hopefully we're not wrong. We'll hear about it in a year when he's like, told you!
Yeah, I was about to say. If Starfield comes out broken, you said that they were excited to create this thing. How could you be excited about this broken piece of shit? Ian Everett Trout writes in, hey peeps, the introduction of Game Pass and PS Now has made the measuring of success more complicated than simply looking at unit sales and attach rates. With the parity seen in the 360 parity seen in the 360 PS3 console generation and somewhat subdued subsequent gen in mind, what do y'all believe is success for Microsoft this generation with the Series X and S? Thanks, and have an adequate day. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty on-point question as we see more day one Game Pass editions. We're seeing different measurements of success like player counts, download numbers, because download doesn't mean sales now because we have, once again, Game Pass. So what do you think is, I think for us to get into what is successful for Microsoft and Xbox in turn, we really have to look at each developer and what is successful for them. Because I think what happens is when these developers are in a good place, we'll say like Outriders as a pretty strong example with what Ian's tapping into here. I think when they're successful, Xbox is successful because we'll talk about it in a little bit. They got their quarterly earnings results and Xbox is making a lot of money still. And some of that is definitely generated from Outriders. So what do you think about what success is in this generation?
I guess I wouldn't really even be able to answer it. I don't care too much, as long as a game's supported when it's gone. Like, I don't care about a game's success because I think, a good game that does well, we've seen multiple times where we don't get a sequel, even if a game does awesome, which always pisses me off. Especially there's those times where you're like, oh man, this game sold like 6 million. We're for sure getting a sequel. You never get a sequel, and you're like, God damn it, I wanted a sequel. And then you get a game that you're like, they're making a sequel of that game? Why are they doing a sequel of that? So I would say I don't track it too much. I don't know what you would consider successful. I know what other people consider successful. And like with Microsoft's amounts that they're doing, as a whole, they are wildly successful. Wildly. Yeah. Like, it's not even, and by the way, I had somebody who was trying to argue that in Twitter, and I was like, no, you're dead. Like, this is the tracking that's been done, wildly successful. There is no way around that. Like, we can pretend it's other things. It's absolutely not. So, wildly successful in that way. But for a single game, I would say continued support and a continued player base. But since every game has their different sales, I would know more what failure looks like, I guess, would be. And I think the reason why I'm saying that is because now there are so many ways to hold yourself up from total failure, Game Pass, with deals, humble bundles, all this, that I think abject failure is what I notice quicker, more quickly than I notice success. Success is so many varying layers and degrees that it's hard for me to track.
Yeah, exactly that, because really, to see that success, it's typically guaranteed, we'll say, through a deal on Game Pass, a deal with Epic, like you said, where you can get those funds back for your development costs and just kind of focus on profit afterwards and in turn
fixing
your next
support.
Game. And fixing, yes.
We should bring
so
that up.
I think that's really well said, and there's not much more I can add to that. Joshua Myers, our last warm-up question, then we'll get into the news. Hey, Magnificent Maddie and Breathtaking Carrick, do you guys ever pair games with food? My wife thinks it's weird, but I think it's immersive. For instance, I've been playing Super Meat Boy lately, so I grab my SpaghettiOs with meatballs. When I play Sea of Thieves, I grab some rum. Just curious if you've tried or have a phenomenal pairing in mind. Thanks for all the awesome content.
No. I've never thought about that. That's funny, but no, I don't think I do.
In high school, I had gaming food, and by that I meant grab a soda, have some mac and cheese, anything that was literally unhealthy and just completely destructive to my body.
And easy to eat, like the ease of being able to put down so you can grab a controller quickly. All those kind of things always came into mind.
Yeah, I that's about all I've ever done. I mean, because I don't think, like, when I picked up Ghost of Tsushima, like, I didn't go to a ramen place or
Right,
something
or
like
get
that.
sushi somewhere.
Yeah, that's like, I didn't think to do those types of things. I'd be curious to see what else Josh has come up with, but
Yeah, true.
SpaghettiOs. I mean, you could, dude. Yeah, Josh, I'm gonna change your life. The fact that you're fucking making SpaghettiOs at whatever age you are pisses me off. What you need to do is there's this thing called Fasta Pasta, Fasta pasta. Okay, look it up. You microwave your pasta. That sounds crazy, I know, but
but it works.
It actually boils it. Okay, so you can throw it in the microwave for like 15 minutes, and you can have legit pasta. So you can have shells. You can have spaghetti. You can have whatever you want. It boils it. It's quick. It's easy. And you can just throw some jar sauce on afterwards. Do that over SpaghettiOs. For the love of God. You'll have some leftovers. You can save some for your next Super Meat Boy session. SpaghettiOs with meatballs, though. Grow up.
Let me double mystify this motherfucker. What is his name?
Joshua.
Okay, Joshua. Prepare for something that I did not think would be good that turned out to be absolutely delicious and sounds horrendous all at the same time. One of my friends would come over and play Gears with me all the time. His name was Rich. He was in the military, and he taught me about a ramen burrito. So what you do is you take top ramen, you smash it inside of the bag. Don't open the bag. You smash it up. Open the bag just enough once it's smashed to pull out the seasoning. Pour hot water into the bag and let it sit. And it will turn into a roll of ramen dough that looks like dough. If you smash it well enough, it will look like a mini burrito. And then you put the seasoning on it and eat it like a burrito. And I got to tell you, it sounded so gross. He came over and he's like, he's got a little cooker at my house. We're playing Dungeons and Dragons and video games. You could see a smoke coming out. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, top ramen burritos. And I got to tell you, man, it's gross. I mean, it's just dough into a cylinder. But goddamn, I got to tell, and I'm sure somebody here has done it already, but that was actually pretty good. And it worked well for games because you could eat it without, top ramen you could spill. I'm always worried about spilling, so I don't eat like steak while I'm playing games. Because, dude, have you ever done this, Maddie?
You need a fork and knife.
And one time I was cutting, and you know how sometimes you cut something and whatever happens, and like the steak, like if there's an uneven surface, my steak flipped off, fell onto my keyboard, which meant all of the juicings and shit were in the key. It was just a dead keyboard. At that point, I looked at it. And I'm like, Keyboard's done. Like, I'm not even worried about cleaning it. It's gone.
I had that happen with Anthem of all games too.
Of all games.
Yeah, I had a sip of water and it just went down the wrong pipe, and I coughed it up, which is, it just flew up and landed on my keyboard, and I thought like, oh, I'll just dry it off, it'll work. Fried the whole thing.
Fried the whole thing.
It was a mechanical keyboard too, like a $90 one. I was like, fuck.
I'm pretty careful now around my stuff because of that.
Oh yeah.
Gotta be
after that, for sure. All right, Josh, thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
Now for the news. Number one, there's a lot of significant pieces of news, but not one that I felt was like a definitive top of the list. They were all pretty interesting, but not like that big hitter like a Nintendo or what was kind of happening with PlayStation. So here we are. Number one, rumbling has continued to occur around the mysterious Starfield coming from Todd Howard and his team at Bethesda Game Studios in Maryland. Through my personal Discord server, it was sent to me that the copyright notice on ZeniMax's own website listed Starfield for 2021. Now, I'm not sure if anyone else discovered this, by the way. That's how I personally found it and then put a tweet out about it. Other games listed on the site had their respective launch years matched with the copyright notice. So Fallout 4 was in 2015, Doom Eternal was 2020. So there was something there, at the least, matching up with release years. Hoglaw, who, once again, our friendly legal expert who joined up for an episode of DDU, wrote on Twitter, quote, I would say it reads more as there's something that could happen this year, but there's no guarantee. Jeff Grubb said he had more of an informed prediction that Starfield would serve as a connective tissue between Xbox and Bethesda's respective E3 showcases on his Games Mess show. Wanted to lead things off with this because we did have a pretty good question about Starfield, but it seems like more and more through reportings, discoveries, that Starfield is lining up to be revealed this year on an official capacity, I should say. It was technically revealed back in 2018, but I mean, of course, gameplay, knowing what the thing is, that type of thing. So with some of these rumblings, where do you sit on a E3 reveal for Starfield? Are you expecting it? What do you make of some of the copyright notice stuff that we found here? I'm not sure if you saw it. If not, I'll link it to you. It's on my Twitter account. But What do you want to start with first?
Well, you guys are much more into like checking copy. Like I don't really check copyrights and anything like that, but I think it's a good first base for like any kind of discussion. I usually just like talk to people that I know about games, and I'll be like, seriously, is it coming or is it not? You know, blah blah blah. But everybody's saying the same thing, was like it could come or it couldn't, which is typical of any game that's in the latter half of a year. Like any time we get in the last 6 months of a year, you could say it'll come out this fall, or maybe it'll come out next year, because that's just the way games work. So I think they'll for sure show it at E3. I don't think there's any hesitation they'll show it at E3. But as for releasing this year, I still just don't think it will be released this year. But that's not that's like, it's going in the face of what most of you guys have, which is more data than I do. I was just, sort of hinted that it was not coming this year. But if it is, I will say this: if it is, we will then look at a situation where there's a far higher chance that the other indications we got were wrong as well, which is the exclusivity. And the reason why I bring that up is the farther away, the less chance of exclusive, or the more chance of exclusivity. And so a lot of the tie-ins was that, hey, this is going to be 2022. Exclusivity makes more sense, blah, 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 because of where they would be and all that kind of stuff. And now you look at 2021, it's like, well, September, November? Like, if you're talking just a couple months away, then we just don't know what Microsoft paid them to do. Like, was it just for the stuff, or was it also for exclusivity? Those weren't announced yet, so we don't know. Yeah. But I think it just brings into question a little bit more. But I guess E3, they probably wouldn't say that. And that's the honest opinion. My honest opinion is, if we do see it, there may not be available on these platforms that points to if it's truly going to be exclusive. That's just mine.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the 2022 thing, because it's always, and I've said this even when I reported in January and mainly February, that like, hey, Starfield is still slated internally to release this year, and unless I was told otherwise, I'll kind of believe that. But it's just interesting because a lot of people do get caught up in this conversation and forget that it's very easy for a game this year to get delayed, especially last year as well. Yeah. Any game, literally any single one can get delayed. And that's really important to emphasize, because a lot of people have sprinted away with reportings like it's a guaranteed, it's coming this year. It's why you're not seeing like Jeff Grubb, very chatty insider. You're not seeing him say like, yep, this year. Like,
if he did, he would say, yep, this year, but maybe not this year, but probably next year, possibly this year. Half the time, I have no clue what he's saying. I just found him,
it's
though,
no offense to him, but like, this guy is a chatty insider. Like, he just likes to yak about everyone's secrets, and it's like, that's his thing. And so I feel like if he's not saying it, then that's worth noting, right? That's a status. That's a status check of where the industry's at. I've said it before. It's not news. I've said before. I was told like, hey, they're aiming for 2021.
You've always thought 2021 overall. Like,
well, yeah, because I don't like to do scoop reportings.
Nah.
Number one, I don't want to be a leaker, because and this is no offense to anyone, by the way, I just have higher ambitions beyond leaking data, and I don't want to spoil surprises either. Yeah. Exactly. It can change fast. It can make you look foolish. So I'm not really in the business of that. But when I have public information corroborating what I've been told by sources that have been right in the past, kind of like what I mentioned in my reports of the KOTOR remake, I was told like, hey, it's going to have more action combat. I'm like, okay. And then you see on a AAA job listing on Aspire, a company that's never done a AAA game, they have a action combat job listing. It's like, well, there it is. That makes a lot more sense. That's a lot easier to report. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think with Starfield coming in 2021, it seems to be sort of a internal target. Let's go for this type of thing. And the reason I say that is because I think it was on Destin Legary's YouTube channel. He was making a video was sent to me about Starfield from him because I was in it. And so someone was like, hey, you got a shout out here. And so I went to go thank him. I typically do that if someone features my coverage in their videos. And I was listening to it, and he mentioned that, or no, it was Jeff Grubb. That's who it was. It was on his Games Mess show. He mentioned that the Bethesda communication managers kind of like all took a week off kind of like a pre-E3 week off. And typically your assumption would be they're going to do that if most decisions are made. So I feel like if the internal reportings are, hey, we're going to do Starfield this year, or we're aiming for a reveal of Starfield this year, I don't know if they're going to come back and suddenly change that. But even when things were normal, we've heard reports of an E3 demo getting pulled before. So
yeah, true.
It's really up in the air in that regard. But I feel pretty confident we're going to see Starfield this year.
I think the best thing is if we... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, if Bethesda continues to be the creature of habit that they have been for multiple decades, this is the year they'll do it. This is the year they'll at least show it. They'll do their typical May teaser, or I should say early June teaser, because E3, what is that? It starts the 11th or the 13th or something like that. I forgot the exact dates, but if Bethesda remains the creature of habit that they are, then they're going to start teasing Starfield within a couple of weeks of E3, so probably early June. So that's when you'll get your answer, I think, publicly at that. Other than that, more reports will continue to fly around. Sorry, what were you about to say before I kind of talked right over you?
No, that's all right. I interrupted. I don't remember, but I think one of the cool things is that if it does come out this, other than people saying when will it or won't it come out, there has been no leaked data other than those supposed but for sure screenshots, right? That's pretty much it. And I think that's the best part, because if all this is true, it does indicate people can hold secrets very well. And, you do have some people saying 20, but it's like, a leak, but it's not confirmed, but it matches up with the copyright. So there's none of this 100%, which I think is awesome, because that does indicate that at least somewhat, some companies are able to hold data that's important. And I think that's
always
awesome.
Been good at that.
I know, but especially now when you have everybody who's like, it's one of the reasons why I almost never reach out to anybody, because I never want them to think I'm picking them for like a video. It's like, if there's a PR manager or for a game, I will never DM them and be like, hey man, not that you do. I'm saying I will not, because it's what happens all the time now. Even and PR managers have told me that before in the past for games. They're like, yeah, dude, I have like 8,000 people saying, just between me and you, can you tell me, blah, blah, blah. This would be great if it does, because I think that's one secret. The mystery is what I sort of dig. And I want to be surprised, like I would also rather be happy that it is released in 2021 and is good, because I would love a big game this fall too. COVID has annihilated so many companies, and we've seen 4 now. I knew of 3, and now there was a 4th big delay. It's like all these delays. Gotham was another surprise. Somebody was saying, like, I had no thought process that it was coming out this year. It's like, well, you were the only one, because there were people internally who were like, this for sure coming out this year. So it's like, there's a lot of people who are surprised about various games being delayed, and I hope it's not. I'll just say that. I'd love to play it.
Yeah, I agree, and because it could be and end up being a strong finish to the year if you get like a Starfield, you get a Horizon out this year, like so many people.
That's
hope.
Another one, right?
Yeah. So fingers crossed. We'll see. I'm just excited at the premise, and this is where excitement lies, by the way, in answer to our question earlier in the show. I'm excited at the premise of kind of a new sci-fi RPG, because here's the thing is that with Mass Effect gone, No Man's Sky sort of being its own thing, like it's not an RPG, there's this big hole in sci-fi role-playing games right now that no one really has taken up. Space exploration and all that stuff, that's not really there right now. BioWare's coming out, of course, with Legendary Edition, but outside of that, there's a lot of space sim games and stuff, but we don't really have that space RPG. So I think Bethesda is kind of coming in at just the right time. Also, they're not going to be really. They have to be. I'm sorry, I know they're good people at Bethesda, but just like any company, but they got to be breathing a small sigh of relief that Cyberpunk did not dominate like many had expected it to. Because if it did, it sort of would have been breathing down their neck, I think, no matter what they released. Kind of like what happened with Fallout 4 and The Witcher 3 would have happened again. So I would not be surprised if some people there were like, okay, it's our time now. Like, we got this, you know? So I got a good feeling about Starfield. We'll see. Here's a little interesting scoop. Obsidian Entertainment has really not been featured on this show much because they're relatively quiet. So we haven't heard anything about them. I always keep my ear open for them. They're one of the companies that I had a lot of stuff leaked to me on my channel in the past, but since then it's just been radio silence.
It's dried up.
And so, well, here we got some nice information. Carrie Patel, who is a senior narrative designer, I actually interviewed her for The Outer Worlds. You can check it out on my channel if you want to. Revealed during a Q&A on a GDC video that she is currently directing her own title at the studio after directing The Outer Worlds Peril on Gorgon expansion. Now, I did a little extra digging, and this is where the plot really thickened a bit, because Josh Sawyer, who directed New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity series, he revealed last August he's directing his own game, but it isn't Avowed. So it's another separate project, right? Because I don't think you're going to have like two directors on the same thing. And then you have Brandon Adler, who also announced he's directing an unannounced project of his own, which means that between these three, Avowed and Grounded, that Obsidian has 5 different games in development in-house right now. Obviously of varying sizes. We know Avowed is the big one there. Grounded we knew was a team of about 15 to 20 people. I just found it very interesting that Obsidian is keeping their DNA. And I think that's really good because they're focusing on these smaller, tighter projects, despite coming into a lot more financial backing and security. And I think that's really good. I think it's really, really good to see. So what do you make of kind of where the studio lies right now?
I have no clue. They've pretty much disappeared. Like
right?
And I wasn't, randomly yakking with them a huge number of times, but it does seem odd. But they're completely disappeared. So I have no real data of any kind or, idea of what they're working on. I don't know. Whenever you get that many people saying they're working on a lead project, you never quite know how big they are. That's about the only thing. But
you'd imagine Josh Sawyer's is at least a RPG of some kind, right? Like that would be
probably
a pretty safe bet.
He is a fairly big RPG nerd too. Like he'll do entire Twitter threads on not RNG, but like discussing world building because he's a D&D nerd as well, and world building and the issues with pillars and all that stuff. So I would see him as being probably the major lead on one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think of Peril on Gorgon's director getting a crack at their own game? I think that's kind of interesting how Obsidian's sort of ushering some people into larger roles. I think it's a pretty good chain that they're creating because Megan, I think her name was Starks, I want to say, she directed Murder on Eridanos, and that was her first time directing something, which was the DLC for The Outer Worlds. And so I imagine at some point she may be given an opportunity to direct something or be of a higher role. So I kind of like how, from the outside looking in, Obsidian is operating. And I thought it was kind of exciting to know that it's not just going to be Avowed. It's not just going to be Grounded. Now with the Outer Worlds DLC done, we got some really cool smaller projects on the horizon, and they're not just all big AAA. I think that's really good to kind of have Obsidian maintain their DNA. By the way, before anyone speculates, I do remember in an it was a stream archive, Josh Sawyer did confirm that his little project is not Fallout related. So no one should be speculating that he's working on like a little Fallout spinoff of some kind. As cool as that would be, and I'm sure he'd be open to it, that is not what it is from what he has said, unless something has changed since the Bethesda acquisition. But still, I thought this was a really neat little discovery here as the company sort of sits quietly, and maybe we'll see more from them this E3. I have no idea about that. It'd be nice to see a little Avowed gameplay. I just thought, on a personal level, I don't want to take us too off track, coverage-wise, how swamped I would be if they did Starfield, Fable, and Avowed. Do you realize, where would I fucking begin on my videos, right? Like, as an RPG guy, where the fuck do I start on that? That's terrifying.
I don't know. I would just assume you'd do 5 videos a day instead of 4 or whatever the fuck you do.
Yeah.
I can never
you're
tell.
Not wrong.
Yeah, you're doing a lot.
You're not wrong.
I mean, and that'd be awesome. That'd be an awesome problem to have. Monday, Avowed, Tuesday, blah, 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 Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. I will say I didn't like Paralon Gorgon near as much as Murder on Eridanos. Murder on Eridanos was ace. Just a complete excellence from pretty much start to finish, where Gorgon was it was fun. There's a lot of issues. So I can't wait, and I hope they both do well, but I would love to see the producers and workers who did Murder go out and do their own thing. And one thing that does bother me a little bit is we don't see this very often. We saw it with Lost in the Damned. We saw it with Ballad of Gay Tony and a couple others where you get standalone DLC, where it's like, or they call it standalone. It's like an expansion, but it's standalone. It doesn't require. This is just me, man. As successful as Murder was, dude, I would legit pay for multiple different Outer Worlds DLCs that just continue in that. Like, that's the one thing that I think a lot of companies are missing. We either get new or we get DLC attached to. It's like, what if it's a different character, with what if they appeared before, or what if you're the captain that gets killed right at the starting and so you get to play as the captain, for Captain a little while doing doing your thing, and then right at the end you get smashed by the main character. We don't see those, and I think currently companies are not taking advantage of the continued fiction inside of games. They're taking advantage of sequelitis. They're not taking advantage of like, so they do Fallout 4, they don't, and we get 3 DLCs for each one or whatever. But it's like, it just seems to me that there are, especially with Obsidian or whatever, there's these awesome worlds they could be explored in some more unique ways. We see it sometimes, but I'd like to see more of it, personally. I would like to see more of those bite-sized 8-10 hour adventures inside of a game world.
Yeah, there's more apparent assets being reused in Murder on Eridanos. Not that like game development just generally doesn't have that, but it's just it's a little more obvious in that one. And I think it's because the Outer Worlds did well, but I believe their timing for their DLC releases, as great as they've been, it was just really bad. Like, they took way too long to get.
And COVID.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying in general, they took a really long time to get something out for that. So I think it hurt them, and they kind of, after committing, had to move on as quickly as possible. So I'm excited to see what they do next. But still, a little update on Obsidian. Number 3, it appears that the information reported from IGN Korea was true on Square Enix adding more games to Xbox Game Pass. On May 4th, Dragon Quest Builders 2 joins the roster. Since then, insiders have teased that it looks like Bravely Default may be up next. I've seen that as well, but I really can't confirm it because to me it just sounds so wild. Because Bravely Default... especially if it's the first one, that's the thing. No one's really said, but if it's the first Bravely Default, that was a 3DS game. So for that to make a leap to Xbox would be pretty fucking substantial. At least with Bravely Default 2, it would make a little more sense because kind of like with Octopath, that's going from Switch to PC to Xbox. With Bravely Default though, that'd be pretty bonkers. But anyway, less on rumors, more on what we got here. Carrick, Dragon Quest Builders 2, baby. Oh my God, dude. All right. Are you a little fanboy like me about this game? What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Yeah,
what happened?
Yeah, you go, girl.
Who hurt you?
That game.
Who hurt you, man?
That game. I didn't hate it. There was a lot of slowness at the starting, and I think that was the one that made you play through 10 hours before you could co-op. Wasn't that the one? To me, I'm just like, this to you, buddy. This to you. And a couple games have done it, not just that one. But I know a lot of people loved it.
I actually fucking love this game so much. Like, I am pleading with the audience when this comes on Game Pass. We'll talk about it more next week when I can put my hands on it. I am pleading with the audience, download this game and try it.
I mean, it is for sure.
It is, of course, it's a Game Pass game. I'm sure that's a given. But if you are questioning it, do it, man. I'm telling you, because it's like Minecraft met a RPG. And what they did was nothing short of just spectacular. Like, it was such a surprisingly good game. Like, I have about 80 hours in it. My really main qualm with it is, as Carrick said, the co-op. Unless they changed it, you can't access it for a chunk of time. pretty hefty chunk of time. So do keep that in mind. But outside of that, really charming. Instead of just building things, though, you're building rooms, and each room has a purpose, and it'll generate resources for your town that you're making. And just the game opens up more and more and more. And I played this on the Switch, by the way, which is saying something. But I just, my God, man. I remember going on a vacation with my girlfriend, and like every night we'd settle down around like 7 or 8, and I'd just be in bed till like 2 a.m. fucking playing this game every fucking night. It was so good. I can't emphasize it enough. We'll talk about it more next week, but it looks like more Square Enix games are on the way. So time will tell.
Nothing surprises me on that shit. I mean,
Yeah,
they already, well, yeah, because they already have Kingdom Hearts. Like, once all that stuff came on, I really started looking at it. I'm like, whenever now anybody says anything, I'm just like, all right. Like, when people were saying Outriders a couple days before they announced it, I was like, all right. I remember just, I think I tweeted about it, and then I was like, talked about it, oh, there's supposedly something. But it's like, at some point with them, Square's the mercenary right now of game companies. And they're smartly leveraging whatever they can. And I mean, it's okay. Like, to me, that makes sense. Leverage that onto whatever platform you can get it on.
Yeah, why the exposure wouldn't help you or hurt? Sorry,
it wouldn't hurt
you at all.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
it'll
why not
just
just
set
do
you
that?
up for a sequel or whatever if that's what you want to do. More people are going to get hands on. So,
Well, speaking of I put it in quotes, mercenary in gaming, the top of them all, EA.
oh God. Oh, for some reason I thought this was gonna jump back into the new Kojima stuff. Okay.
No.
I was like, here we go. EA. What about EA? What about EA?
This is number 4. The following EA games now feature FPS Boost. It's also worth mentioning that you can download all of these games through Xbox Game Pass. So now all of these games run at a higher frame rate. Battlefield 1, 4, 5, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Plants vs. Zombie Garden Warfare 1 and 2, Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, Sea of Solitude, DICE's Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, Titanfall 1 and 2, and Unravel. So all these
Up
games
to
are supported
120
for
FPS.
Boost. Yeah, I did see that for some titles, like Battlefield. Couple of them. Crazy.
You know how you think something's big news, and when it gets announced, no one cares, right? Like
That's
you
FPS
could be like,
Boost, man.
That's FPS Boost. I was posting the Far Cry picture. I was like, this is a big deal. I was telling people it's one of the 3 huge deals in the podcast. It gets announced, and people are like, cool. And I'm like, cool. It's 120. For some of the games, it's 120 FPS. Like, that's not cool. That's exactly what you've been bitching about for fucking 4 gens is FPS. You've been bitching for 4 gens about FPS. And it got greeted. And they're free games, by the way. Free games, FPS Boost. There's literally no negative, and for the most part, even in my own Discord, it got greeted with that cuckoo. You're just like, Jesus, I have no clue how to please you.
It almost baffles me, right? Because they're not only doing FPS Boost, but they're doing it for games that maybe don't have a lot of players, like Battlefront 1. Are you fucking kidding me? Who the fuck is playing that? Like,
not a lot of people are,
Titanfall 1, when Titanfall 2 is kind of like the champion of underrated games, and it had like a 650% player boost increase because of the Game Pass, a sale, Apex Legends connections. Like, dude, come on. Like, they're doing a lot of good work out there with FPS Boost, because that's what you want, man. Like, when you're buying into your platform, is that your older games are gonna, like, you kind of, I don't want to say you expect, you hope that the new stuff's gonna come out and use all the bells and whistles. But for the old stuff, if you're not a PC user, you're not used to that retroactive, like, oh, wow, this looks, runs, and feels better. You're getting that now. And more people should make noise about this.
Dude, in Far
Cry,
awesome. Sorry, excuse me, but I was just going to say, some of these games also popped originally with 4K, but they were 30, right? So they were like 4K, amazing textures, lighting, but the trade-off is 30. So then you get the new gen, which maybe they get 60, some don't. And then you have Boost, which is like 120 on some of them. And the idea that people, I'm just like, dude, your system is gaining power, sentience as you sit there. It's gaining power and ability for free games, maybe even. And you're like, yeah, all right, that sounds okay. All right, man. All right, cool. It's like showing up at a party and, it's like the first time you showed up and people are like, oh, hey,
the whole time,
hands in your pockets, kicking rocks in the corner. They're playing songs you don't like, and you're just like, why did I come? It's all right, man. I'm not gonna hold it against anybody if they're playing something else, I guess. But Titanfall getting it, that's cool. Like those kind of, I agree with you that hopefully we see it in some of the big titles, and we will. But I think it's cool that this means they're not just worried about popularity. It's like they're getting it working on everything they can, which to me is much more exciting than if they just hit 5 popular games. That would kill me because we would know how it was going to go from that point on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the fact that they hit Mirror's Edge Catalyst is kind of like, okay, sure.
Who in the top 1,000 games that Mirror's Edge wouldn't even have come up in a list? I would have started doubling over on the same list before I would ever got to like Mirror's Edge Catalyst. So very cool.
And it makes the tough pill, as it stands at least, easier to swallow of knowing like they might not be adding a ton of games to backwards compatibility in the terms of 360 and original Xbox games. I really want them to continue that initiative. I don't think it should be a trade-off. I want them to figure out some of those licensing deals and start to make announcements for back compat, but it's a lot easier to accept when you see the last gen games getting nice boosts.
I can speak to one of those. I did get contacted by a developer who was not contacted by Microsoft about their IP, and because of Boost, they are thinking of trying to get it on backwards compatibility. And they were saying that like there are steps to reach out. They don't know where Microsoft is. I don't know where Microsoft is on backwards compatibility, like where their team is, because I know their team sort of switched at one point. But there are other people looking at Game Boost and going, oh, okay, if you're going to be doing all this and then Titanfall's jump, you can bet some devs are looking at their old games that weren't on backwards going, like if they're, like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Second win,
why,
man.
Yeah, get 2 interns to fucking get it working, and you have some people playing your old game.
I get a kick that out of the fact that the older Mass Effect games didn't get a boost. I was like, that looks about right to me.
Yeah.
Let's just leave out the most popular EA games that hit Game Pass because we're selling them in about a couple of weeks.
That would be my opinion too. That's why we saw those games, which in particular would probably benefit, not get them.
Oh yeah. Because then why would you buy it, right? Like, come on. Number 5, here we go. Games with Gold, you know the drill. Armello, May 1st to the 31st. Dungeons 3, May 16th to June 15th. Lego Batman 1, May 1st to May 15th. And Tropico 4, May 16th to May 31st.
Awesome. I love Tropico. I adore that game.
I do too, but doesn't Tropico have like a 5th version and like
a it's 5 right. Just came out a while ago.
Yeah. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here. I think everyone knows my thoughts. It's just like, I just kind of sit there straight face, like that's where you see. That's the thing, right? There's a real big problem when people are going okay to FPS Boost and then going okay to Games with Gold. It's like, where is this? Like, how do you deliver a clear message to the brand of what they're doing right and wrong? I think we got to make it pretty apparent that one's better than the other.
Considerably genius. So Armello's good. It's
These
just
are not bad games.
Gravitating
good.
Make
that clear.
Yeah, they just don't gravitate somebody to that service for that game. But if you have it, I would suggest, if you're listening, to for sure check out Armello.
Here's how I view it, right? Armello I can't speak on, but I look at Lego Batman and I go, well, there's 2 and 3. And I think Lego Batman 2 is like one of the greatest of all time Lego games. But regardless, you look at that and go like, why would I play the first one?
Oh, wait a minute. Are we complaining
4.
about this? What are we talking about? What is this?
I am complaining.
Is this Games with Gold?
Yes.
Oh, this is the typical, okay, I get you. I was trying to argue your point because I thought you weren't seeing the, I'm sorry. I took this completely different. So you're saying this is back to the why is Games with Gold a thing? Okay, I got you.
Not even why is Games with Gold a thing. It's just like I don't know
why
how
it's
to
a
word
thing.
it with
No, that is
it.
That is
I
it.
sound ungrateful, but it's just like, dude, fuck, like Lego Batman 1?
Yeah.
That was a PS2 game, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I was purely talking to those games I would play, but if we're comparing them to why, if there's sequels and all that, yeah, for sure.
I mean, of course, I always say you may as well redeem them just so you have them. You get to keep them forever. Yeah, go ahead.
Definitely do that. Yeah.
More to my point is just like, I think of Tropico 4, that's the most egregious one to me. I'm like, dude, Tropico 5 exists, and it's not like this super new game where you couldn't have got that on Games with Gold. I will topple out of my chair if they get a game that came out within the last year on Games with Gold. That'd be fucking staggering. But at that point, why don't you just get it on Game Pass? That's the issue.
Yeah,
but I don't want to sound like broken
I
record.
wonder if
so
they're
unless you got more to add. We'll move
no,
on.
I don't have any. I didn't even know the focus there for a second. I was like, why does he have an issue with these?
When I said you know the drill.
Yeah, I was like, what's the problem? But I get your drift, and I think that one thing we haven't looked at, no one's stated it, and we probably wouldn't be able to find the data, is it possible that there is a different licensing payment agreement for those games with gold versus Xbox?
Gotta be.
And maybe there's something there that we're not seeing that is a benefit to some of these companies, which is fine too. You know, like we just there's a gap there, which is why we all look at it and go, the fuck? And the gap may just be Microsoft doing their thing, but it also, you know, Microsoft's made some stupid moves this year, like raising the price of gold anyway. So we have no clue what they're thinking. Smoking some dope on that one. I mean, come on. I still think that was a ploy. Maddie, I will die before I absolutely believe there was.
You think they galaxy brained it?
I absolutely think they big brained that. Yeah, there is some galaxy brain, big brain, whatever. Maybe not galaxy. That's pretty big. But I think I think that whatever they did was absolutely 100% on point and no mistakes were made, even though we think there was a mistake made. Because, dude, how does that happen? How do those steps happen? How does the rollback, how does all that happen without a plan? It's the same way I come off thinking of the PS3 store removal thing, where, you know, and I've seen people be like, was that you know, did Sony want a positive press moment? You know, it makes you wonder. It makes you, I'll never worry too much about it, but it does make me, you know, look at it.
I would argue that they are stupid enough to just
which one?
See how,
both or the
both.
or yeah.
They I could see them just being like, yeah, let's see what we can get away with here. If your Xbox, like, Phil just cracks his knuckles, what the fuck are they going to do?
Or maybe it doesn't go through Phil, too. Maybe something like that. I mean, you'd be blown away if
Phil's
it didn't.
team, whoever it is.
Yeah, maybe somebody at Phil's team was like, Phil's out eating a Subway, so let's do it. Like, all right.
Phil takes one day off.
Yeah, dude.
Like, fuck.
Phil's
What
finally,
happened?
right? 700 days on. He's tired. He's got fucking bags under his eyes. His wife is like, I'm leaving you if fucking you don't take a day off. So he's like, okay, I haven't seen my kids. They're 7. They're able to talk now. Last time I saw them, they weren't able to even, they didn't even say dad. So I'm going to show up. He takes that day off, right? He's got his feet up and he's like, this is pretty fucking nice. Maybe I'll put some sound dampening material in my studio so it doesn't sound like shit the next time I do some kind of event.
Put up some
right?
sound foam in there.
Feels like maybe some sound foam in the corner. This is
like this on the
yeah.
microphone.
Feels like, welcome to Xbox. We spend a lot of money. And you're like, no, you fucking don't. And then all of a sudden he gets a ping on his Twitter and he's like, his wife's like, don't you check that? And he's like, okay. But then he gets that second ping. She's like, Phil. And Phil's like, I'm not checking it. And does that thing where he's like, what the fuck? We raised him. Yeah, we raised him. What the fuck? He's dropping all of his foam back down. You know, he's like, screw this. Never taking a day off. That was a long origin story for Phil's anger, but I'm just saying.
I mean,
possible.
it starts somewhere, right? You should take up writing.
I should. There we go. I mean, something's up there. I want to know when he leaves, like Sean Layden. I want to have him on an interview and be like, let's talk about some things that happened.
Yeah. Do you think anyone from Xbox would dare step foot into our show? Do you think they would? They take the chance, roll the dice, and be like, let's see if.
Sure. I mean, it depends on, you know, live, but I mean, you have Albert Pinello, who's been fairly critical of Microsoft and was fairly critical of Phil on a couple tweets after he left, where he's like, one person runs the show, they're not me. So the decisions made were Phil and the guy prior to him. What's his name? Matrick. It just depends on what they can say and if they want to say something at the time. Because that's another thing. You come into this show, you can be guaranteed it's like, we would like to ask some questions that maybe you haven't been asked before, and then they have to look at their PR statements. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on who it is. I do know one person, and I've dropped their name to you. I do know that they watch, and I talk to them. I mean, you know, it's possible. So I don't. Sometimes it's better to not have them, because then you worry people think you're favoritist towards them, and it's like, no, I just can't ask that question. I've seen some people be like, oh, Sony went on Giant Bomb and Giant Bomb didn't ask them why they fucked up. And I'm like, dude, do you think that Giant Bomb would just be like, dude, we're going to ask anyway? And Sony's like, that's not coming on. How fucking stupid. In fact, do you know who's going to get the best one, Maddie? Every time, Ryan. Ryan was able to ask Jack Trenton shit that no other Ryan McCafferty from IGN. That guy, I do not know what deals with the devil he made, but he got Jack to talk more in one interview than he had talked in 20 years prior, and to say things that were fairly legit, that were fairly like critical and open. I got more data from that. That's why Ryan's the king. Like, anytime
Ryan's
I see
great,
an insider with Ryan, I want to watch it because I know he'll ask questions that a lot of people would be like, I don't know how he gets the okay, but he's just like, we're just going to ask it.
I would wager as someone who's done interviews, I would wager if the conversation starts to lean into that, you just ask anyway.
And they can always say, cut it, Because Elon Musk did
the thing
one
is
with him
like,
too.
It depends on who you're interviewing. Like, if you interview someone like a Jack Trenton or someone higher up, it makes sense to ask those questions. Whereas, like, I talked about how earlier in the show I interviewed Kerry Patel. Like, I remember there was a big issue with the Outer Worlds doing Epic because that was kind of when it was very bad to do Epic Game Store exclusivity. And, like for her senior narrative designer, me going like, why'd you guys sign with Epic?
Yeah, she would have no clue.
I mean this with no disrespect to her. Just like, what would she know on that? She wouldn't. Like, and it's not her position or her job to know. So it's like a very pointless question. It just puts her in an uncomfortable spot. So I feel like it's almost a known thing that, like, hey, let's say we got Phil on. Like, Phil would know we'd have questions about what happened with Gold. And then, press on that a little bit. What happened with
they're vetted.
Game Pass?
They're vetted.
Yeah.
I mean, Giant Bomb made it pretty clear that every question that they've asked is, they can jive a little bit, but that if it's a question that doesn't go into like an answer Phil can give, he'll go to an answer he can give. That's one good thing about Phil, man. Phil's good at that. You'll be like, so Phil, why'd you raise the price at Game Pass? I don't know why I'm mobster suddenly, but you'd ask that, and Phil would be like, well, let me tell you about the excellence of Game Pass. And you're all, but that's not what I asked. Phil's good. Listen to Phil talk. He's, by the way,
Phil and Todd Howard, man. They were cut from the same cloth.
They were. And they're like, Aaron is a little bit more cumbersome, but he, you can tell where he's at, where he's, and you can tell if he can't talk about something. Like, I never get any, but with Todd and Phil, you could leave going, that was good, and then re-listen and go, he didn't say shit! He didn't say one new thing! But you would leave that impression going, yeah, man, he talked that entire time. This is good back and forth, and then you listen and you're like, I asked that question, and somehow we were talking about fucking dinosaurs. Like, what happened? It reminds me a little bit of the guy who made Fable, Peter Molyneux.
Yeah.
He could do that.
And they happen to be the type of guys, because they have so much industry sway, that even when they say nothing, it is saying something.
That's true, too. Yeah.
Just sometimes the notion of the answer
if saying it's, a little bit if they said it's good, then you're like, that's the head of something saying it's good. So that there in and of itself is the answer. Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. It's
dangerous.
That's again why Ryan, dude, like that guy's got I have so much respect for Ryan. Every time he talks to somebody, even when he talks on Twitter, when he's faced with anything, that guy is so much better than 99% of us, man. I see him and I read his tweets or I listen to his interviews and I'm like, damn, son. Like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Like, that guy, if anybody wants to follow somebody, he's the man.
When it came to my reports on KOTOR's remake, he was one of the few who immediately changed the story for, who made the first discovery and started putting the pieces together and reported it. Like, he added me into the article.
Oh, see, yeah. There you go.
So
there you go. That's Ryan, man. That's like stand-up guy. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, because I get it, because it looks like you're undercutting Schreier in that instance, right? And I'm sure he's got a relationship with Schreier of some kind. It looks like that. And so that's why I was, and this is no disrespect to Ryan, I was kind of buried in the article, and it was like just Maddie started putting the pieces together. It's like, well, no, I reported it. Like, there's a huge difference between me investigating pieces and saying it's happening. But besides all of that, I get the uncomfortable position there. Like, the fact that he still did it shows, like, what I think most journalists should show is, like, the care for where did this come from? What's the whole story there? Not just completing the story and moving on to the next one. So
there's also the vested knowledge of somebody's sources being good or possibly being good, where maybe yours are good, but maybe they're not long-term good in the way that he is tracking other people. So he says one thing, versus another. But now stating that's one more place where now you're stated, which is also awesome, because that means even he, the next time this comes up, will see his own change and go, that's one more time where that's, where Maddie has stated this or that. And it's happened with me. I had somebody contact me about something and I was like, dude, you can say it if you want, but in the end, it's really not us. It isn't. Like somebody be like, oh, how did Carrick know? And I'm like, but I didn't. I knew because somebody told me, but I didn't know. I'm not working at that company. A person was nice enough to tell me. So the source knew, but, and that's what you're rated on in the long run, I think, is those sources paying off for you, which is really cool. Again, like I said, guys, if you guys are listening, Ryan McCafferty does his, what's it called? Unchained, Unhooked, Unfiltered, Unbridled, Unlocked. I knew I'd get there. Yeah. Unlocked.
Unbridled.
Unbridled. The Unbridled podcast with Ryan McCafferty. We talk about sexual kinks today. No, he's awesome, guys. Check him out.
Yep. Number 6. The following report hails from Windows Central Gaming's Zach Bowden. Sorry if I said your last name wrong. Microsoft is currently working on a brand new store app for Windows 10 that will bring improved UI and be more open to users as well as developers. The store app will follow the same design refresh that the rest of Windows will be with Sun Valley. The new store will be updated on a monthly cycle, aiming to provide an improved downloading and installing experience for larger apps and games. This storefront refresh will also loosen up some of the policies and impact various aspects of the developer experience, but what's most relevant is the potential for modding, an avenue within Game Pass that some users are concerned with. Zach is also told that this store will launch in the fall alongside the Windows 10 Sun Valley update. So still a ways out, but definitely worth being aware of with how Xbox is heading and their emphasis on the importance of the Windows Store and kind of getting that right, where that could be a competitive storefront at some point in time. We will see. Definitely the last place I want to buy my games, I'll be real, but good to know they're trying. Number 7, and then we're into the Game Pass picks of the week. Financial reports are in for Xbox's last quarter, and things are still looking strong. Xbox content and services revenue increased 34%, driven by the strength of third-party titles, Xbox Game Pass subscriptions, and first-party titles. Gaming revenue grew 50%, and Xbox hardware grew 232%, driven by, of course, the demand for Xbox Series X and S consoles. So things are looking good for them. Most noteworthy stat there, I think, is the content and services revenue increasing 34% in a quarter where they released both Outriders as well as MLB The Show for Game Pass Day 1, showing that those moves are bringing subscribers to the service. And it is, by the way, revenue. This is not profits. This is just raw revenue. But that I've seen people say, like, and I believe them, that Game Pass is making them money. So clearly this is becoming a profitable thing for them.
Yeah.
And I imagine since they're doing this per quarter, right? Like, here's how much our content and services and what drove that percentage increase. I imagine every quarter we will get a couple of core Game Pass announcements that are, I'm talking of the notion of a big day one. I think that'll kind of be the play for them as they continue to push this service and try to make it easily one of their biggest revenue drivers. Unless you have anything else to say, though, we can dive into Game Pass picks
for
of the
them.
week.
Good. All the companies doing well. Sony sold more PS5s than PS4s in the same allotted time too. So
I saw that.
Really cool.
Really good to see. And Nintendo Switch continues to just kill it.
Yeah.
So
and Nintendo's
really good spot for the industry. Yeah, pretty much. All right, Game Pass picks of the week. Would you like to go first, or shall I?
Yeah. So Game Pass, I'm just gonna say overall, because I know that not everybody agrees on this, but recently I just went back and revisited multiple Wolfensteins. They're all there. I think they're all there, right? I'm seeing Old Blood and Young Blood. There was one more.
I don't think 2 is there yet.
So 2, what's 2 called? Just 2? Or is it got
New Colossus?
New Colossus. There's old, new, young. Okay. So old and young are on here. New may not be on here. But I was enjoying, I know that people didn't like Young Blood. I get it. I enjoyed it with a friend. I decided to jump in with a friend again and play it again. There were some patches, some improvements. Still had a pretty good time, but I think we're staring down the barrel of a new Wolfenstein soon. And
oh yeah. Oh
and
God,
yeah. And so there's been some like developments there which could be interesting in the next couple months. So I decided to revisit them. And dude, for just a shooter, a stupid fun shooter, they're a blast. They're not going out of their way to change the world, but they are enjoyable. And I remember talking to you and Lone you guys did a preview event for the one with the stilts, the one where you could get the robotic legs.
The second one. Yep.
Is that the second one?
The second one. Yep.
And since then, I've been more of a Wolfenstein fan, I think, than I ever was, because I always felt a little alone on that until I started your guys' show, because a lot of my watchers or whatever weren't fans. And yeah, fun games. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. I remember the second one got some flack, but I love New Order and I love New Colossus. Old Blood and Young Blood, I was not really big on.
Not a big fan of.
No, not really, especially Young Blood. But
I think Old Blood I liked more than Young Blood.
Yeah, Old Blood I just thought was. Sometimes you think in your head you want more of the same thing and it'll be good. And I thought that's what Old Blood would be. Like, oh, it's going to be more Wolfenstein. And if that's the most or the least it is, then that's still going to be good. I played it and I didn't like it. You know, the story wasn't that interesting. I thought the pipe was kind of underwhelming. I know that sounds stupid to say, but it really did feel that way. And yeah, overall, I like the main entries of the series so far. Even though the second one was way shorter, I thought it was still good. First one, I think, is still their best work. So have high hopes for the third one.
Yeah.
I think that'll be good. My Game Pass pick of the week is for PC only. I did not realize this was on PC Game Pass, but The Saboteur. So this is a game that was from Pandemic. It was the game that was sort of their sunset title before they had been closed down shortly thereafter. I had actually talked with some of the people at who had worked formerly at Pandemic about this game, and they all felt really good about it being their send-off title. They were proud of it. They were really confident in it, and they knew it was one of those games that they made, and they said, like, after we made so many games, like, we were making one here that we knew was good. And so for those who are unfamiliar, The Saboteur, you play as an Irishman. I believe his name is Sean, and you're in Paris, which is controlled by Nazis. And so the entire map is in black and white. And as you complete objectives in the map and you free various districts, color is added to the game. And so it's a really strong showcase of how color dictates the mood and atmosphere of your game. So when you're hearing the music on the radio, it's a little more somber and you're in that black and white and it's raining. It feels a little more drab and hopeless than when you're going through all sunshines and color, which is pretty typical of a game, but it has a different feel in this title. It is a pretty standard, it came from 2009, so it's a pretty standard third-person open-world checklist game, but I think because of that responsiveness with its art style and the completion of tasks, it feels really good. And it's, as the name suggests, you're a saboteur, so you're blowing shit up, you're destroying radio towers, you're taking out bases. You could disguise yourself as a Nazi and infiltrate one of their bases and take them out that way. A lot of different gameplay objectives, a fun story, and overall, one that I don't think should be missed. Pandemic was a top-notch studio. You know, when I sat down to talk with all of the different developers for this company that had scattered into all different corners of the industry, it was one of the rare times you could look back on a game development period and they were all just thrilled on everything they worked on, from Destroy All Humans 1 and 2 to Battlefront 1 and 2, Mercenaries 1 and 2, The Saboteur. I mean, they really did churn out some special stuff that transcends time quite well. So if you have yet to play The Saboteur, you got Game Pass on PC. Go ahead, give it a rip. Think you'll like it. As for backwards compatible pick of the week, my friend, what do you have?
So I didn't know this was backwards compatible in the same sense. This is always difficult if it's Xbox One and like how it works. But Mortal Shell, because I feel like Mortal Shell came, and that's the Demon Souls from the Demon Souls style game that came from just a couple people. And it got some DLC, but I would say if anybody's got it, if anybody, you know, has the new systems and want to play an older game, that is one that is definitely worth playing. Mortal Shell was fun, and it had some unique ideas in the way it handled dark. Like, they all try to do something unique, but I thought Mortal Shell had this really cool dynamic of being able to turn yourself rock hard. So like, and enemies would bounce off you. So I guess it was a parry, but it was like a body parry. It was just such a weird way of doing things, and yet you couldn't move, obviously, when you did it. There's just a lot of stuff I liked. It was definitely a darker, more drab Definitely Dark Souls 1 more than, let's say, 3 kind of vibe to it, but well worth getting.
Mm-hmm.
Well worth getting.
Didn't that get a next gen update?
I don't know, because it's in the backwards compatibility section, so that's why I was like, all right, I'll put it on here. But
interesting.
I thought, because when it came out, I could have sworn it was on both, but it's listed as backwards compat, so, which is obviously going to even be worse of a problem as we move forward, where multiple games are coming out. Like, did you see that? Not Spider-Man, the other game. There's a game that was only for PS5, and then they just announced it's actually coming to PS4. What was it? Was it Dark Souls? No. There's an exclusive game, and they were like, it is for sure only for the PS5. And then, like, last week, and I think that'll happen a lot, you know, where you get these titles that were sold as exclusive that aren't.
Ugh.
But it's well worth checking out.
Nice. I fired up this last week a game that I have fallen back in love with entirely, and that's Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Now, we've talked about a lot of Dragon's Dogma on this show and our love for it, but it's so different when you talk about it from a past experience and then you're just hopping in pretty fresh. It's been a number of years since I've done a clean playthrough of this game. And typically when I've hopped back in, it's only been for a number of hours, and I'm like, okay, you know, I've scratched that itch. But going into this one, I had a different feel for it. I fired it up, actually on my Switch, but still, you can play this on your Series X or whatever. Wow. I mean, man, this game is fucking good. So it starts off, first couple hours are pretty slow, right? Like, you're creating your character, you're getting out of your village, you go to an encampment, you do a couple missions, and long story short, you know, it's a little, you have to escort the entire Hydra's head that you just cut off. So there's a point in the game where it feels slow, and you will ask yourself, if you don't know what's coming, what's special about this game? This is slow, this might be boring, it's very methodical. But as it starts to open up and you start to see the mechanics for what they are, like nighttime in this game is actually night. It's dangerous. It's hard to see. You need a lantern. You need a torch. You need fuel. You need to be able to see. You can't just explore what is night day in most games. The creatures and the difficulty of them, when you're low level especially, you can't just explore everywhere like you do in every game. And when I'm walking to a quest and I got ambushed by like a mercenary group, man. And so there's like an ogre that they took over. So we've got this big boss monster in the middle of like 80 different people fighting, and it's intense. Not only that, some of the most intelligent party AI I've seen in my entire life still to this day. So I've never played an RPG where you're actually able to lean into the knowledge of your party members in a way that doesn't feel scripted. So in other JRPGs, you'll have your character go, "Oh, I'm from the lands of Erebonia, so I will escort us there because my lore lies there, and that's where you're going to learn about my origin story." And you think, okay, makes sense. They're going to build their character. But in this case, through the pawn system, which for those who are unfamiliar, it's this thing where as you explore the world with your pawn, it gets uploaded to a cloud, a server, where then people can download your pawn and have them join their party. And so those quests you complete, those experiences you have, will aid other players. So now with a game that's been so many years out, you'll download pawns into your party and you'll approach an area, and if they're a little bit of a higher level than you, they'll be like, this cave is dark and full of spiders. We need to come in prepared, have anti-poison ready. It's like, fuck, that's amazing. Like the fact that that's even there, and it's coming from someone who I've had join my party. It's an absolutely incredible game. It will feel old in its combat a little bit. I chose a mage. Probably not the best idea, but really fun regardless. Highly, highly recommend giving this one a look. I'll have a video on my channel about this in the next week or so. But man, really dig the fuck out of this one.
Yeah, one of the best games ever made by them.
Dude, and I'm so happy it was on that leaked document, because I like posted on my Twitter like they need to make a second one. People were like, well, it's coming because it's on the leaked document. I'm like, I know, but I'm emphasizing like they need to make another one of these games and just retain some of those elements I mentioned, and they will be golden.
I think it's the only game I've ever reviewed a version of every single copy to. PC, PS4, Xbox, and Switch, and 360. So I've reviewed that game 5 times.
It's incredible. It really is. I can't emphasize that enough. If you can, I don't want to say get past because it's not that much of a slog, but you may wonder for those first 2 hours what's special. But once you get to the main city and you are let off, I wouldn't even say let off the leash, but once you are let free and you start to get crushed a little bit, and then you have those moments of where you go into a goblin encampment and you're like, I hope I don't die here. And you actually take them out and it's a pretty clean battle. Well, you think, all right, fuck
not
yeah.
only that, but like if you make a character that's too big, he can't get into some caves. If you make a character too small, they can't leap up onto some cliffs. There's all kinds of stuff that they took into account that almost no other game takes into account. It's just... the first time I walked into a creek and I had my little fucking lantern on my waist and it goes out because the water hit it. And I was
that
like...
happened to me. And I lost my oil. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I was like, this is crazy. I've never seen a game do that. I always tell people it's Dark Souls light because it's more manageable than a Dark Souls, but it can be unmanageable if you make a big, stupid mistake. And Dark Souls don't hinge on other people unless you summon them. I think the pawns are awesome. The star knowledge system of the pawns. So when they first show up with 1 star, they're like, wolves hate fire. And then later they're like, wolves are in this area. They hate fire. And then by the time you get like a pawn who knows everything about wolves and that area, they'll just unload data on you. And it's awesome, man.
It's incredible how they teach you about the game world through it.
Yeah. I jumped onto the Griffin outside of Grand Soren in the later part of the game. It flies all the way around the land while you're fighting it and then crashes back at the starting of the fucking spot. Like characters that just fly off with you on their back that's the first time where I've been like, what the fuck is happening? He's in the air and I'm on his back and it's just like, see ya, bitch. It was, so good. So good.
Mm-hmm. So please check that one out as well. Comes from Capcom. All right, PC deals of the week. We got 6 for y'all. Number 1 comes from Walmart. For $300, you can get an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X. So go ahead and snag that. Pretty good price. Next is from Corsair. They have a power supply unit, 750 watts, back in stock, $185. Not too bad. Over at Newegg, there's 32 gigabyte Crucial Ballistics RAM. It's going to be 2 sticks of 16 gigabytes though. $150. You have to use the code APRCRUCT if you want some new RAM. So pretty good on the parts here. Anyway, GOG is having a Desperados franchise sale, so you can get Desperados 3 Digital Deluxe Edition for 50% off and Desperados 3 for 50% off. So just know these are on Game Pass. There's also Desperados Wanted Dead or Alive, 75% off. Desperados 3 Season Pass is 50% off. Helldorado is 75% off. And Desperados 2 Cooper's Revenge, 75% off. This will end May 2nd. So I believe this will be a patron-only sale. Correct, it will be. And day one listeners. And then last but not least, Steam is having a sale on the Tales of series. Vesperia, 80% off. Berseria, 85% off. Zestiria, 85% off. Symphonia, 75% off. And DLCs are 50% off. I would say look into Berseria or Vesperia. I've heard good things about Symphonia as well. I played that when I was a kid. Oh, and one more sale. On Steam as well, Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown is 75% off at around $15 or so. So, any of those you'd like to check out? I believe Ace Combat is also on Game Pass. But
I already got Ace Combat.
Yeah. So, unless you want to own it, otherwise, pretty good. Okay. Now for our ending questions for the show. Starting off with John O. Hello, Maddie and Carrick. Ever since the battery debacle with PlayStation, I'm wondering if there is something similar for Xbox. I own physical for about 95% of my console game collection, so battery issues or server issues rendering even physical discs unplayable is scary for me. I will buck the trend this week and wish you guys a sunny, happy, and beautiful day. Drink that Snapple, Maddie. Thank you for your time. So this is one thing I was talking about early on that we were going to get into. Was that I've actually made a whole video dedicated to this, was that PlayStation has encountered this issue with their CMOS battery, which is powering the internal clock for the PS4 and the PS5. And what's happening is if the PlayStation servers go out and that battery is not available, I believe that's how it would work, and Carrick can correct me on that. But if that happens and it can't check the trophy syncing, the games will not be playable no matter what. And Spawn Wave Media, friend of the show, did a really good job showcasing that to what will happen there. Because his specialty is cracking open consoles. Xbox, on the other hand, it's been learned, and it has been said for a while, but more people, I should say, are learning about it, is that they server check Xbox One games. It's a one-time digital check where you've got to be online, and you can then register it, and then you'll be good to play. So the fear here is that with this demand for a server connection, technically on both ends, one powered by a battery, one more internet-based, is that you will not be able to just throw your disc in the console. And so this has really presented some understandable worries, because while it's not a problem now, it can be one in the future. And I've said this in my videos, where I think this is a time where the company should jump on it with some type of firmware update if they can, because it's one of the rare times where gamers are being proactive instead of reactive, right? Like, we're ahead of something that could be a problem, so let's fix it now before it damages these consoles and their legacy left. But yeah, ultimately, that there is something similar to Xbox, John. There is. It's just in a different line. But what do you? I never get to talk to you about any of the issues with the batteries and stuff.
I mean,
yeah, the PS4 and PS5, the Xbox issues. What do you, as a tech guy for our show here, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, I don't know why I don't know what's connected and why they can't just, or why there's some data they can't put on the hard drive that's written that's like, okay, that person owns this game. I don't know. I really don't know how all those systems work when it comes to that continual server check. I do know with Microsoft's, they definitely do, because I've taken my Xbox to the cabin where we leave. We go out of internet service. And I think whoever said it's a one-time check may be incorrect on some versions of games. And the reason why I bring that up is because there was one game we played and we were gone for about 78 hours. And at 48 hours, we got a warning on one of the games. And unfortunately, this was back before I was tracking all this kind of stuff. But I was on the Xbox, and it stated you have a certain amount of time before you need to reconnect to the internet. And we used a cell phone with like 1 bar of service, because all it needed was to do a check. It was like a 2 kilobyte. It was like, bing, he still owns it. And that could have gone away. It could have gone away by now. But overall, they need to fix it. I mean, obviously. I don't know with the CMOS stuff, if it's just gone. It sounded like it was gone forever too. Like, I could be wrong, but I thought somebody was saying that even if you put the battery back in, it's broken. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Because in PCs, you have your CMOS battery. If it loses, depending on how old your motherboard is, if it's gone, reset your motherboard back to normal, right? Like, that's gone. But you can put a new one in. Like,
yeah, that's the problem. Like, is the conversation got confused, because I think so many people are learning about what has powered so many things. Like, I think Game Boy cartridges had a CMOS battery in them to keep your save file
Xbox original
active.
had one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, this has been a major battery for the last couple of decades, and I think people are acting like it's this gold that you need to dig up and find.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's that.
It's not the case, but it's still concerning because of the server checking, and what gaming is now could look different. I don't know, 2 decades from now, who are the major players? Are they still PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo? What does that look like? I don't always want to act under the assumption that Xbox will be here with their tons of dollars and their servers ready. It's like, we should find a way for both these companies to be able to say, like, hey, if we're out of here, you can still play your PlayStation 5, you can still fire it up, you can still throw a disc in. But yeah, to answer your question, John, there is an issue on the Xbox end of things there. In fact, it's arguably, some people have said, worse, because PlayStation seems more easily solved through a firmware update. So let's talk to Matt Borges next. Howdy, gamers. It's been great getting to know you guys through the pod since the launch in this January, sorry. But there's one lingering question in mind. What's your favorite dinosaur? Now, this may seem like a total detour at first, but you can tell a lot about someone by their favorite prehistoric creature. Thanks for the great show, my dudes. I got to double check if I got the name right.
Probably, but it's not real anymore. They already figured out it doesn't look exactly like the old movies would have, but Triceratops, normally.
Mine's a
T-Rex.
Stegosaurus, yeah.
Stegosaurus. I was going to say, I sort of like stegs because they're not aggressive. You know, they're like the The old
they're just
monolithic dinosaur. Yeah, they're the cool Jurassic Park style dinosaur where you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Like you can walk up and pet it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tyrannosaurus Rex and stuff isn't cool. You can't pleasure yourself either with those little tiny arms. So I think of those things. No,
yeah. I with the Stegosaurus, I did a project when I was in like second grade. I have a picture of it. We had to like create our own dinosaurs and put them in their natural habitat, so to speak. And so yeah, I have an emotional connection to a Stegosaurus. So shout out to all my Stegos out there. Love them.
Plesiosaurs and all the ones that like Loch Ness might be based on were cool. But I mean, that's the thing is like they keep changing them too. Every time I like a dinosaur, I'll look up and they'll be like, actually, we think we took the wrong bone from this one and this one. Here's your new one. And then it fucks with your mind. It's like Pluto changing to not be a planet. And you're like, dude, it's a planet. That. Yeah, it's a planet.
I hate that, yeah.
And people be like, no, it's not. We want science
like someone just
itself.
had a power boner at that moment. They were just like, it's not a planet.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Fuck you.
Neil deGrasse Tyson smoking his middle name. He's like, deGrasse, not a planet. I think that, like, overall... I mean, I haven't seen a dinosaur I didn't like the look of. I think they're awesome. Scary as fuck, though. Like, one of us back in the day, dude, it'd just be a disaster. Like, humans think they're so awesome. Even with guns, and you go back, it would take a very small amount of time. It would be like living in the worst parts of the Serengeti or the worst parts of the jungle with every animal wanting to kill you at all times. And even the ones that didn't want to kill you didn't give a fuck you were there. They'd just sit on you and kill you.
Yeah. Cody Smith is up next. Hello, buds. First-time writer. Welcome. One of the several Codys? Yes, actually.
Oh, yeah.
With buzz building around Returnal and Ratchet soon to follow, the PS5 seems to be maintaining its momentum with quality exclusives. Plus, the PS5 is breaking sales records with no sign of slowing down despite it being nigh impossible to find. Even with Halo Infinite on the way, does Xbox realistically have a chance to compete with few exclusives coming in the near future?
Exclusive in what? Do what? Did it compete in what way? For the number of, like just a number, how many exclusives are available?
Compete financially,
oh,
sales-wise,
dude, they're way above Sony. Yeah, they're in far better shape than Sony is, even with the sales when it comes to financials. Financials, Microsoft isn't even on the same level as Sony. Like, Sony is...
Microsoft isn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Xbox. I mean, dude, go look. Like, it's... Like, that doesn't even... If he means sales just for the consoles... I don't think so, because Microsoft's going to go away from that. You're going to see the Fire Stick announced soon, which is going to be like their version of the, what do we call it? The Series M for Mini. That'll be announced. But when it comes
to streaming on PC.
Cloud streaming on PC, which they've stated is for sure going to happen. But when it comes to PS5 versus Xbox in particular, like those two consoles, no, I don't see Microsoft ever selling as many because they're not trying. They're not trying to. Even if they were, I don't think they would. But they're also now have come to the smart decision that they don't need to.
Yeah,
I think.
And what I don't understand is if Xbox, and I'm emphasizing Xbox and not Microsoft, if Xbox is looking at PlayStation, they sold X amount of consoles and they're selling X amount of games and they're making money. If Microsoft is still making if Xbox is still making very good money, which they are, we just went over very briefly their financial results, they're generating a lot of revenue. It's like, okay, unless you're just having a battle of the egos, you're profitable, you're making really good money, your services are growing that you're investing in. So what is the problem here? Just beating PlayStation? And that's why I believe Phil, when he doesn't really say, yeah, they're not our main competitor, because they're going beyond the console space in a lot of ways. Like, you're still playing games for those consoles, but when you're able to play them on your phone and on your computer, on your console, on your smart TV, and maybe your Switch, I think it changes the whole dynamic of really what are you competing against. It's like, we'd rather just dominate the whole gaming space, or try to at least, rather than go in a battle of the consoles. I think it's fucking smart, honestly. So let PlayStation tout their sales numbers. That's kind of what they've always done. Let them go ahead and do that. And Xbox will have user numbers as kind of their
when
indicator
Phil said
of success.
that too, I was like, I don't know what he's talking. I mean, I get what he's saying, but I was like, And obviously he came through and I didn't. But when it was when he first said that, I was like, I get where he's coming from. And it's true, but it's like, how fast will that switch happen? And I would say the only thing that has really surprised me this gen is how fast that switch did happen. Microsoft didn't just say that so they could obfuscate numbers. They quite literally said it and then spent more than they normally would if they had like not done that change. It's not like we want to get away with selling less so we're not going to worry about it. It was like, we're just going to, it's not the same thing. It's almost like Sony is playing a different, not a different game, but it's almost like the separation that's happening between Switch and the other two. It's like Switch is doing their thing on the side, Sony is now sort of doing their thing, and then Microsoft, if they had a weaker system, I think this would be an issue. But they don't. And so instead, they're like, well, we do have a stronger system in many ways, whatever. So we're going to offer these things on everything. It's just a weird gen. And it's going to get weirder. I mean, as Bethesda got bought, I don't think people realize that's like the tip of the iceberg of what these companies are looking at for their changes and their adjustments. So it's dick measuring is the old way of doing it, right? I don't think anybody does that anymore or as much.
I was also wondering, because a lot of people talk about PlayStation not getting Bethesda games, a little off topic here, but they talk about that, but what about Nintendo? And it's like, if Bethesda could do their games through xCloud on Switch, it's like now Switch users have access to Bethesda stuff. I mean...
Oh, I see. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is weird. That would be weird to suddenly be playing... Yeah, that would be... I never thought about that. That is possible. That is possible. So it's also going to be possible where we're not. I think they'll call it a Series M. I did hear that, but I think that was bull. I think the person was fucking with me. But Series, for mobile or for mini. But whatever goes in, one thing that Microsoft has made clear is they don't care about the platform. So Apple's browser version of xCloud, that to them is their platform. Then you start going to like, why does a hardware sales matter? First of all, the companies lose money or don't gain a ton on a sale. So a lot of people think, oh, Xbox made $500 because they sold an Xbox One for $500. Not even close. It's way more than half of that money they lose in hardware, if not a tremendous amount now due to COVID. Sony is doing a Game Pass, whatever, So what's that going to look like? Do you then say, I would never say, well, Sony isn't doing as well because Microsoft's Game Pass is bigger, because that wouldn't also. They're not going against each other. Like, it is a weird,
right?
It's I think higher than most of us have ever had to think when it, usually we used to look at a platform and say, this is them. It's not the same anymore.
Brent Lindquist is our next question. Hey fellas, toss my name into the growing pile of PlayStation faithful who are jumping into the Xbox ecosystem. Halo was released right after I started high school, and Xbox became my gaming home for a decade. I only picked up a PS3 when my second 360 stopped working after 2011. However, when GameStop put some Xbox All Access consoles up for sale last week, I jumped at the chance and got lucky. You guys recently talked about PlayStation pushing people to Xbox, and I'm wondering, is Sony's cross-generational approach contributing to this? Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favorite PlayStation exclusives, and you can bet that I'd be a lot warier of holding out on a PS5 of Horizon Forbidden West if Horizon Forbidden West wasn't also coming to PS4. Thanks for the show. I guess this was, by the way, written in before we saw the numbers of PlayStation and how many consoles they sold. So no one jump on Brent's back here, but I do think it's worth talking about in the long run, because it's going to sound like I'm trying to take something away from PlayStation. I swear, I get how it looks, I know. But I think the question that always lies with these hardware sales is how many of these people are scalpers. I'm sorry, but when I see fucking warehouses full of them in screenshots that people have taken, I know that's like a small percentage. But if I'm seeing that, I do ask that question still. There is an issue with scalpers. And while the consoles are being pushed, how many are being pushed for the games? Most probably. But it's still something worth talking about. So do you think this cross-generational approach will be an issue? Because I don't think it will be. I think at the end of the day, numbers will show it's not going to be an issue. Is it a little like, that sucks? Yeah, like that's why I'm really excited for Ratchet, right? That's PS5 only. We're looking at, based off the numbers we have now, probably by the time Ratchet rolls around, at least like 9 million installed PS5 player base. And it's like, well, that's not bad for a beginning of the generation console exclusive launch. So I just wonder if they're going to do that with Ratchet, why aren't you doing that with Horizon? And will this end up biting them in the back? I don't think so, but it's definitely food for thought.
If the game can't be done on the older systems, I think it makes sense to move it on. But I think for the most part, a lot of these can, and they're not really changed. I mean, like, I'm playing Returnal. Can it be done on a PS4? Yeah. There's zero that can't be done. There's nothing that can't be done on a PS4. In fact, I would say 99.9999% of all these games can all be done. But Ratchet and Clank, switching between entire worlds without a load, probably not. So that's one that you would look at it as a tech guy and say, hey, man, we want to do this PS5 only because this is the only way it really, the weapon, the idea of the weapon works, which people need to also realize the reason people always are under the assumption that it's like, oh, now that one can do it, everybody's going to do that kind of thing. No, for the most part, a lot of people are going to want to make their games available on every system, including Switch or, all that stuff. So they're not going to be looking at making a Ratchet and Clank. But for that game where a weapon in particular, or whatever it is, portal gun, is that what it is? I guess is what you call it.
Yeah.
Whatever that gun is, that makes it stick to the PS5. It's really good. I think most games are going to be on cross-platform, and I don't have an issue with that. None. I also do believe that there's a huge amount of psychology going on. You can't get a PS5, you want it more. That's just plain and simple the way it works. Humans work that way. They always have. So it's like, and I'm not saying their sales are high. I'm saying if they were suddenly flush, how long would the sales be high until the desire to have what you cannot have suddenly turns into a more thoughtful
some people
process.
like to hunt a little bit more in the actual acquisition.
Yeah. Look at how many divorces there are. There's a reason. Trust me. No, I mean, that's the way humans are, dude. You know it. I've got games I don't open, but I hunted to get the game. And we're gatherers in that way. So yeah, that's not to take away from Sony or any company in the past that sold really well with numbers restricted by various reasons. It's just sort of the way humans work. I think it's awesome. They're all doing well. And in the end, I would rather have most games be on all systems. I get that Ratchet's awesome, but unless your game has something that is specific to these new NVMEs and stuff, I would much rather be able to turn on my system and play Outriders with people on 4 other consoles. Just going to be brutally honest, man. Because if that game didn't sell well, but sold okay to 4 consoles, then I have a higher chance of playing with friends. And that's what matters to me.
Makes sense. They even announced a new multiplayer IP of some kind that's gonna.
I did see that
be on PS4 as well. So
PS4 as well. Yeah. I hope that continues until, these are really cheap.
Yeah. Last question of the show: the mighty Zinger. Hey guys, new subscribers here. My freeloading days are officially gone.
Good
Excellent.
man.
I know the Bethesda conversation has been talked about to death, but do you think there is added pressure on Bethesda now? $7.5 billion is definitely a lot of money. I know many fans, including myself, want the, quote, Bethesda days, end quote, to be a thing of the past. Also, Maddie, I managed to snag a copy of The Lost Odyssey at my local game shop for $10. I consider that a steal since they labeled the price incorrectly and was actually closer to $20. Cheers, Logan. You did. As long as it was complete in box, by the way, manual and all, then you did get an official steal. Good job on that. That's why you go local, man. I for a video, I'll just say I bought Sonic 06, typically about a $60 to $70 game now, no matter what console you bought it on. I got it for $27. Go to your local shops, support your local shops. It's worth it, saves you money, and it's fun. With that though, is there added pressure with the money in the bank for Bethesda now? The pressure to perform, if you will.
No more than they already had. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Like,
they didn't see that money go in the bank and go, fuck.
Yo, gotta do a good job now, Maddie.
They're like, job's done, baby. Let's go home.
Originally, they were like, we're done. And then Microsoft bought them like, shit, guys, let's return. Let's put some more stuff in. No, I don't think that in particular. In fact, it probably would have alleviated a couple headaches in some various ways. But I don't think so. I think with some companies, it might add some stress. But for them, They do a pretty good job of stressing and still failing at times, like normal people.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think I have much more to add on top of that. I think I think it's just the same as always. They want to make a good game. They want to make fans happy, and we'll see if they deliver on that. And if COVID hurt the game so much so that it's going to come out in a pretty messy state.
God, I hope not.
You know, I don't think people realize
so.
like a lot of the bugs for these Bethesda games is really a lack of engine problems. And I know some people will like be like, what? And it's because this word of mouth reputation is really built up around the creation engine being a bad engine. But it's one of the most interactable ones out in the industry that you can like pick up and see every object and move it around. And there is that level of interaction in their games that just no other game has. Yeah. And because of that, there's so many moving parts. What really it comes down to, from what I've been told by modders and people at Bethesda, is it really is like a programming thing. That's the biggest problem there. And that just boils down to, I don't want to say your talent, but that's not an engine problem.
Time and
talent. It's that, you know, so Bethesda has had, they're well known for being a long-standing hire when you join them. So you'll see in pretty much any single piece of Bethesda PR where you're in their studio, they talk about how someone's been working there for a decade or 2 decades.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
10 years. Like I've been working here the shortest amount of time. How many years is that? 9. It's like, wow, that's pretty unheard of in gaming. So they keep their developers nice and cozy. And I don't know what that says about the quality of their products. I don't think it says much. I think it's good that they're comfortable. But yeah, I think the engine oftentimes gets dragged when it's less that and more a programming thing. So just wanted to add that in there at the end. But other than that, Carrick, that's it for episode 17. It's been a fantastic time with you, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Thanks to everybody who watched, took the time out. Check out Returnal reviews. They pop tomorrow morning. Looks like during our podcast, Fextra Life's got leaked. They gave it a 9.3. So
there we go. Curious to see what your review is, my friend. And I'm seeing based off what people are saying online, it's gonna be pretty good. PlayStation never got back to me, so I'm
never got back to you at all.
Nope. Yeah, I don't know, but that's okay. I will pick it up. I will play it when the time is right. I'm more interested in Mass Effect.
Yeah.
May is going to be Mass Effect for me entirely. So
and we got Resident Evil coming.
Yeah. So exactly. I know some people just get flustered with lack of access, and I understand that, and it can be annoying at times. But this is one of those situations where it's like I just wanted to review the game. I can't. Yeah. Okay. You know, like what am I gonna? That's not going to make or break my channel. So, looking forward to playing that, seeing your review. Be sure to check out Carrick's channel for that ACG. Other than that, any parting words?
No, man. Hope everybody has a fucking pretty good week. Pretty good. Not going to say great. Pretty good week.
Yep.
The best I'm going to give you. Pretty good.
Hashtag pretty good.
Yeah. There you go. Hashtag pretty good. That's it. Nope. That's it for me.
All right. Until then, we will see you all next time with episode 18. Peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC and is recorded from the good old USA. The show was conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Jeremy ACG Penter. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.